Part 244. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2437. So Leda doesn't have to worry about time. Anyway, I'd better go out and see what his power is like. If possible, after asking for the information clearly, I will have someone bring the first message to his ears first. After passing it on layer by layer, I'm sure I won't kill him the first time I see him. Finally flew out of the subspace. For Leda, a strong man who was not familiar with the subspace, he has been in the subspace many times recently, and he has become less unfamiliar with the subspace, even going out of the subspace. When the space sees the normal universe, it feels unaccustomed to it. Outside, as always, there was a vast starry sky. This is normal. The universe is originally a place composed of most of the cosmic vacuum. It would be a bit unrealistic to just fly out and find a star or planet. Over there, I seem to be able to feel a little breath of life. Latest talent is that he is also a talented person with good brainwave power, but he also has a strong body. In short, his brainwave power is not as good as ordinary brainwave power talents. Compared with his body, and he is not as good as a strong person who specializes in physical training. It is commonly said that he can do everything and can do nothing. Therefore, he does not have such high expectations for his own level of combat effectiveness in the galaxy's central star region. The previous battles have also proved that he is indeed only average at the same level. First of all, I have to try to find an existence that is weaker than me, but not too weak, ask him for information, and let him send a message. This way, the safety is guaranteed, and I won't be unable to contact that domain for a long time because the existence I am looking for is too weak. Host. Leda's idea was still correct, he set his target on stellar-level creatures. Friends over there, please wait a moment. I am a visitor from the outside and I want to ask something. Suddenly, Leda locked onto several ships far away. The passengers in these civilian ships are all creatures that have only reached half a star level. In the central star field of the Milky Way, such beings can only serve as civilians at most, and they cannot even compete with the powerful. Seeing Leda's appearance, the ships instantly became chaotic, terrified and nervous, but fortunately no one escaped. Because everyone knows that such a huge creature is most likely to be a galaxy-level creature. If they escape, they will not be able to escape the speed of a galaxy-level creature. Besides, if this galaxy class really wants to attack them, then just do it directly. There is no possibility that he can't kill the people on their ships. If a galaxy class can't even deal with ordinary people, then why not practice? Ghost. So after panicking, they understood that this strong man really had something to ask, so they stopped getting off the spacecraft and waited for Leda to come and ask. Leda approached the group of ships. What he didn't know was that when he started questioning the passengers on several ships, there was an indifferent figure in the subspace behind him, hanging far away in the subspace behind him in a way that Leda would not be discovered. Observing his behavior. Yes, this is Jia Yan. But it's not Jia Yan himself, but a clone of Jia Yan. After all, this is the first time that Leda does something for him, and speaking of it, this matter is really risky. As a person who treats his friends better, how could Jia Yan think that he can do it just by relying on a positive and negative power stone? Are you protective of your friends? So he sent his clone, and the clone had more than a dozen positive and negative power stones in his hand. With these positive and negative power explosive stones in hand, even if there is a conflict, his clone will be able to support his true body. So this is truly foolproof. Of course, Leda didn't know anything about this. He thought Jia Yan really asked him to perform a life-threatening mission from the beginning. Well, the initial operation was indeed the same for everyone, and the information was first-hand. When Jia Yan saw Leda's operation, he knew that he was just like himself when doing things. He couldn't just find someone else's headquarters casually. If he ran there without knowing anything clearly, the possibility of being unlucky was quite high. This is not a waste of time, and it is definitely not a timid thing, but an inevitable process. If this process is not done, Jia Yan may not dare to give Leda any other tasks in the future, because it is unreliable. Not long after, I saw Leda asking about something and letting the ships leave casually. Not killing anyone shows that Leda still has a compassionate heart. Of course, it may not be necessary. By the time these weaklings start talking nonsense, Leda may have completed his mission. So that's it? That guy was also injured that time, and he was so angry when he came back, which made the entire force feel uneasy. For example, the residents of this ship actually wanted to flee the star field. Leda felt even more solemn. At first, the Zerg Queen's force just passed by this force and was chased by it. Then look at this guy who came back with a little injury and dealt with his people like this. It shows that he is definitely not a good-tempered person. And what do you think a person with such a bad temper would do if he suddenly sees a being like himself who has fought before? Let me give you a hint: should you serve it with delicious food or drink, or should you tear it to pieces in one go? Well, I guess anyone who knows his temperament will choose the latter option. So Leda was nervous, but he was also very fortunate that he had understood the character of this domain lord first, and then as long as he operated well, he could avoid such incidents as much as possible. I can't just run back and ask Lord Jia Yan for help just because of such rumors or hearing that it's cruel. If I stop doing anything at this level, how can Lord Jia Yan leave things to me in the future? Leda denied the idea of going back to Jia Yan for help immediately, and took off directly in the normal starry sky again. While flying towards the path he asked, he was imagining in his mind how to communicate with the domain master in the future, at least to let him not kill himself, otherwise there will be no point in saying anything. Jia Yan just followed Leda, watching him approach the next wave of people again, and found a reason to ask about the recent affairs of the starry sky, and whether there were any problems with this force recently. After getting the information, Leda began to figure out how to get close to the territory lord, who definitely didn't have a good temper. Especially as an enemy he has met before, what should he do to prevent the other party from killing him immediately and allow him to finish his speech properly? Moreover, even if he spoke, the other party would surely know that this was Jia Yan, the senior domain master, who was preparing to intimidate him to stop causing trouble to the Zerg Queen's forces. Will this creature become angry in anger? How about killing Leda with one blow to vent his anger? This all needs to be carefully calculated by Leda. Unfortunately, he didn't have much time, because as a subordinate, it would be too incompetent to spend 10 days and a half for the master to wait for news in the subspace. Therefore, if he wants to do something, he must do it quickly, but there are not many ways to do it quickly. Apart from meeting him directly, there are only one or two other ways. Oh, actually I didn't want to do that, but the situation was pressing before me, so I had no choice but to do it. Leda finally revealed his last trump card. That is disguise. That's right, he was going to put on a complete disguise, and if even a domain lord couldn't recognize his disguise, otherwise he would be unlucky if he was recognized on the spot. In short, Leda's skills were so powerful that even Jia Yan, who was in the subspace, was amazed for a while. I saw Leda finding a planet outside the subspace, and then plunged into this planet with few inhabitants. After entering the depths of the planet, he kept rolling in the magma. The more he rolled, the more magma his body became contaminated with, and then bit by bit, the magma condensed into blocks on his body, making his body feel like a rock. Not long after, Leda reappeared in the eyes of the world amidst the earth-shattering explosion. The few residents on the entire planet were horrified to discover that the creature that caused earthquakes and volcanic eruptions on their planet was actually a creature with extremely terrifying aura and a huge size. Suddenly, there were one or two venerable level creatures. The creature was ready to find the culprit, but it instantly turned into a dull gourd, daring not to say anything. Now let me ask you, do you know which is the nearest planet that is only populated by stars? Sir, we have very few powerful planets that cannot be controlled by a star level. The weakest ones have to be controlled by a galaxy level. However, we have a few patrol units that are controlled by a star level. I don't know if you need their information. I say to you. A noble level creature responded to Leta's question with great dedication. Anyway, a lot of information can actually be found on the internet, but this strong man didn't check it, or he didn't have network access rights in this area. Anyway, it's not very secret information. Leighton naturally does not have access rights because he arrived not long ago. After receiving the information, Leta transformed into a strong man with a round head and looked like an ordinary rock-like creature at first glance, and flew into space. This guy is quite thoughtful. This way, his image will be hard to recognize. What about his aura? In the subspace, Jia Yan looked at Leta soaring into the sky with approval, showing some praise. It's just that his clone is still a little weak. He can't detect how Leta's aura has become, so he can't judge how he hides his aura. Leta did this again and found the location of the stellar patrol team that the residents had given information about. What was a little surprising was that this team seemed to have known that Leta was coming and was ready to defend to the death. Don't be nervous, everyone. I'm just here to communicate with you, not an attacker. Leta immediately found out what the problem was, and it must have been said by the residents of those planets. But it didn't matter, he was going to reveal his current identity to the patrol team. Communicate, what do you say, Your Excellency? You broke into our territory without authorization, and then you said you came to communicate. Your existence means that we are not strong enough, otherwise we can kill you on the spot. The leader's star level obviously showed great disdain for Leta's words. But after all, as soon as they sensed the opponent's strength, they knew that it would be useless for them to attack together, so they did not launch an attack. They just silently confronted Leta after sending out a distress signal to see what he wanted. Say something. I came here to have a conversation with the leader of your force on the order of my lord. My lord has something he wants to discuss with the leader of your force. Huh? Your master? A group of patrolling soldiers were slightly shocked. The rock-like creature in front of him has already revealed that his strength has reached the elementary level of the galaxy, and the person who can be such a strong person is either a peak mid-level galaxy or a territory lord, and the territory lord, the possibility of being the master is very high. After all, not every beginner in the galaxy is willing to be a subordinate to the peak of the intermediate galaxy. After all, there is not much difference between the two sides in terms of levels, especially in the central star field of the Milky Way. Here, the strength of the peak of the middle-level galaxy is not enough to dominate one side. Besides, if the other party's lord is a peak mid-level star in the galaxy, he won't have the courage to talk to a domain lord head-on. Okay. It was all an honest note, a greeting, and then respectfully waiting for the reception of his master. No middle-level peak of the galaxy would dare to send subordinates to communicate with a domain lord, or even it is already extremely disrespectful to let subordinates go directly to the hinterland of other people's power to convey information. Therefore, the owner of this rock-like creature should be a domain lord who has not escaped. If he was a domain lord, he would have the honor of talking to his master. Although they don't think that their master will lose to other domain masters, but this is already a high enough level, so what if they just pass on a message? Besides, now they are on the verge of death. If they don't pass on the message, they may be in danger. Rock creatures will give them trouble. Thinking of this, several biological brainwave powers conversed for a few times. The star leader took out his own brain, then typed some text, entered it, and then sent it out. Okay, I've already told the people above. My friend, do you need to take a rest in our patrol unit now? The stellar powerhouse asked tentatively. No, I really like your starry sky. Just rest here for a while. Zhineo is here. Just tell me when you have news. Leda looked at the patrol soldiers coldly. He naturally knew that the other party asked him to go to their patrol team because there were more powerful people there. If he entered it by himself, it would definitely be like a sheep falling into a tiger's mouth. Although he was sure that he would not have any big problems, at least there would be no problems before meeting the Territory Lord, but he did not want to be so cowardly. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2438. What's more, after being cowardly, he lost his momentum when he saw the opponent's Territory Lord. Leda still remembered that his master was a senior Territory Lord. If he lost such a powerful person to Jiayan, let alone Jiayan, he would not be happy. Even he himself would be angry that he couldn't flatter Jiayan. Well, you can wander around here, but I hope you don't go to the planet, otherwise it will be difficult for us to do things. Okay. It didn't take long for Leda to leave, but the news given by this patrol quickly reached the highest level of the star field, that is, the target person of Jiayan's arrival. Huh? A junior member of the galaxy said that the adult behind him wanted to meet me. Didn't he say whether the person meeting was the Territory Lord or not? Hey, what's going on recently? You are a strong man and you want to be on an equal footing with me? The Zerg Queen's power last time was said to be borrowed, but in the end she flew past our starry sky without saying anything or giving any benefits. I couldn't bear it. This inexplicable existence actually wanted to do this. What? This is a strong man who looks like a gorilla. He opened his brain and took a look, and started screaming, as if he was filled with indignation and had been bullied. This orangutan creature is a strong man who has chased and killed the queen of the Zerg, and has recently been preparing to cause trouble again. Moreover, his temper is extremely grumpy, which is very different from most territory lords. Originally, territory lords are also creatures. There are all kinds of personalities, but at least at this level, the character is still good, but this orangutan-like existence is really different. Compared with the average domain lord, he is definitely more the impulsive kind. In fact, the reason is very simple, that is, this domain lord level creature grew up in an extremely terrifying family, and he has good talents, so he has been favored by thousands of people all the way up to now, and he is used to being arrogant. The path of life has gradually evolved into this, and it is no surprise at all. Smart sir, have you ever met the master behind the Galaxy Primary Order? He may be here to pay the toll. The subordinates have already understood the temperament of this territory lord very clearly, so when they speak, they are quite in line with his appetite. Well, let me be smart and think about it. I have thought of it. I will ask him to come to meet me, and then beat him until he calls me daddy. Then he will know not to underestimate me. Sure enough, he is a smart mind. Sir, I will arrange for someone to send the message. However, sir, you must understand that if the other party is a strong man, we cannot do it casually. After all, there are variables. I am smart and naturally know this. I am also going to see how strong he is. If he is not strong enough, I will definitely beat him. Who asked him to let his subordinates enter our power? The orangutan seems a bit brainless, but he is also very smart, so none of his subordinates can control his actions. Anyway, not long after, this orangutan-like strong man spread the news and said that he was willing to meet Jiayan. It's just that it didn't take long. In fact, it was several days later, because an ordinary star wanted to deliver a message to the Supreme Leader. During this period, he had to go through a lot of procedures and make repeated confirmations. The process, etc., is not accomplished overnight. The reply is here. Are you really willing to meet this powerful so-called lord? Very good, let's give the message to the other party. It is said that that guy has been floating in the starry sky for many days, so he has complied with our request. It seems that easier to get along with. In the starry sky at this end, the people on patrol received the news, and the person who came forward to exchange information with Leda was no longer the previous star, but a star who was equal to Leda. Beginner strong. This is the strong man who broke into the hinterland of my power before, right? Haha, he is indeed just like the legend, with astonishing magnanimity. The coming galaxy novice did not have the slightest fear when looking at Leda, because his strength was similar to Leda's, and observing Leda's movements and momentum, he must not have any powerful trump card. Since he was a child, he can imagine that the so-called adult behind Leda should not be too strong. So he was not so polite to Leda. Well, thank you for your compliment. I wonder what your master's reply is. Are you willing to meet my master? I hope you can get an answer that won't make me regretful. Leda also thought something might go wrong with the mission. Or the other party wants him to go over and meet the domain lord himself. If possible, he didn't want to see the domain lord, because he had a history of fighting with the other party. If he was recognized during the meeting, he might never come back. Fortunately, the other party must be extremely confident in himself. Friend, your request has been granted by my master. He is willing to meet the person behind you. The approaching primary creature from the galaxy smiled slightly, and then showed a slightly playful expression. Based on his understanding of his master, he knew that the gorilla would never be so easy to talk to, so the reason for asking the person behind him to show up was immediately clear, and there would definitely be some contradictions. To be honest, with the temper of their master, the family is the only one standing behind him. Otherwise, based on what he has done in the past, it would be more than enough for him to be killed 10 times. But over the years, what their subordinates were worried about did not happen. Instead, they were always in fear, witnessing that their orangutan master became stronger and stronger in battle after battle, and finally reached what he is now. It is also considered a good strength among the domain lords. Therefore, they have become numb to the trouble caused by their domain lord, and no one wants to persuade them. That's good. I'll go back and tell my adults, please be prepared to meet. Leda let out a long sigh, then slowly backed away. Then under the very puzzled eyes from the opposite side, the subspace behind Leda cracked a little. However, this was obviously a non-subspace talent. The subspace cracks deliberately opened with his own energy were very reluctant and not that many. Of beauty. Puff. Leda turned around and dived into subspace. Oh. Entering the subspace. The first-level powerhouse of the galaxy, who watched Leda leave, looked deeply and meaningfully at the subspace. He was already imagining whether the so-called adult behind this strong man was a subdimensional genius. Otherwise, why would his subordinates want to go into subspace? However, it is not right to think randomly without any clues. At least this elementary creature from the galaxy gave up this thought after thinking about it. Whether it is a subspace talent or not, as long as he goes to the place arranged by our adults, he must not be able to display his subspace talent, and he may even be trapped there. After all, it was arranged by our boss. The most important reason why this galaxy novice, and most of the powerful people in this area, are more confident about their own power is that although their adults have bad tempers and will make troubles, there are often people behind such troubles. They will all have the support of your extremely terrifying maternal family. You know, the so-called old masters in their mouths are the ancestors of their own masters. They are now close to the intermediate level of territory lords, and are much stronger than ordinary senior territory lords. After thinking about this junior being in the galaxy didn't think too much. After all, he had worked under such an adult for a long time and learned not to think too much. In short, everything was done. Taking out his brain, This elementary being of the galaxy reported to the superiors. "Sir, the news has been conveyed. The other party said it will come soon and asked us to prepare." "Very good, I understand, Zizi. If he dares to come, beat his teeth out." The unique sound of the orangutan came from the other end. After hanging up the communication, the primary creature of the galaxy silently looked at the subspace where Leda left. He was wondering whether he should tell the adults the information about the other party's departure from the subspace. If the so-called master of the other party was really a subspace existence, it would be more difficult. Don't think so much. No matter how strong a person with subspace talent is, as long as he goes to the place where the boss is doing, it will definitely be impossible to use his subspace talent. He decided not to say anything because there was a galaxy level before who was punched to death by the gorilla for being too cautious and talking too much. He didn't want to cause trouble for himself. Leda got into the subspace by himself, then gritted his teeth and looked at the dark subspace around him, looking for the existence of Edisha. If you are not a person with strong subspace talents, it will be very uncomfortable in the subspace. Although there are 2 layers on one floor, there will be no serious injuries at all, but it is still uncomfortable. Saw it? Suddenly, Leda saw the shadow of Edisha's star from a distance, and then flew towards it quickly. In the subspace, the space is extremely chaotic, and there are folded shadows, so the place he left seems to be still close in front of him, but in fact he has gone a long way in the outside world. Of course, it is not easy for creatures that are not gifted in subspace to fly such a short distance. At least Leda spent a lot of effort and almost a day to fly to Edisha. Location. The 5th dimension had done a lot of harm to him, a primary creature in the galaxy. When he got into the Edisha star, he was already sweating profusely and almost collapsed. For a strong person who is not talented in subspace, it is indeed a bit difficult to stay in the subspace for a day and have to penetrate to the 4th or 5th degree from time to time. Leda, it seems you need to train hard. After this incident is over, I will try my best to help you rise to the top of the galaxy elementary level. Ah, okay, thank you Sir Jiayan. By the way, sir, this mission has lived up to your expectations. It has been completed. The domain master has agreed to our request for an interview. Leda got rid of the rocks he was wearing when he was at the shallow level of the subspace, so he still maintained his original appearance in front of Jiayan. He lay on the ground as tired as a dog. But when he heard Jiayan say that he would try his best to help him reach the peak strength of the primary level of galaxy, he cheered up. What do you want to follow a super strong person? Isn't it just an opportunity for advancement? Leda is quite looking forward to reaching the peak of the primary level of the galaxy. As long as he reaches this level of strength, maybe it will be much smoother for him to enter and exit the 5th dimension. Of course, there may not be many changes, because he does not belong to the subspace talent. He can move in the subspace only by relying on brute force. Even if he is promoted to the peak of the primary level of the galaxy, he will probably be better than himself now. With a strength of about 20%, I am afraid that it is still unable to deal with the 5th dimension. But if he can be promoted in strength, what else can he ask for? He believed in Jiayan's ability. Apart from anything else, Jiayan's own promotion speed was there. It is absolutely false to say that he has no way to be promoted, or that he has no experience in being promoted quickly. At least with such a being, Leda believes that he and others will definitely be subtly affected to some extent. It has also become faster in cultivation. This matter is not metaphysics, but it is true. Just like there is a saying on Earth, every aspect of a leader will have a profound impact on his subordinates. Let's take the example we just saw to prove it. It's like the first level peak existence of the galaxy that the outside world just communicated with Leda. When he was talking to Leda just now, he also had the unique pride and irritability of orangutan creatures, but it was just hidden. Very deeply, that is to say, he was also influenced by his own adults. I hope Master Jia Yan's cultivation speed can be passed on to me. Of course, even if not, it will be a safe thing to follow such a terrifying big man in the future. The speed of obtaining resources will also be faster. Leighton knew that he was lucky enough to follow a senior domain lord, not to mention that Jia Yan's attitude towards his subordinates was absolutely fair and just, and he even still considered himself his friend, not just a friend. A subordinate. From a distance, looking at Leda lying on the spot, quietly repairing the strength lost after entering the Edisha star, Jia Yan ignored him and entered his palace. He had actually seen everything Leda said and did in the outside world. He also observed Leda's adaptability and mentality in detail. Leda can do things well, but he is a little timid. If there are similar tasks in the future, try to let him go as little as possible. Even if you let him go, you must explain the safety measures to him, otherwise he will be so timid. If you have a small temper, you might ruin things. Jia Yan analyzed Leda through everything he saw in his clone. After all, he is his future subordinate, and Jia Yan also needs to know his subordinate's temper and mentality. Otherwise, if he is not used properly in the future, he will only harm others and himself. Also, did that guy ask me to come over and talk? Hey, if my clone hadn't found out his information, I might have believed you. Jia Yan calmly put his energy into his clone. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2439. There are actually several clones released at this moment. One of them is also similar to a human being, quite small, on a planet with many inhabitants, but the entire planet is full of weak and small creatures. He was sitting in a bar-like place, calmly listening to the noise from the outside world. Among the many voices, he heard this one. Ha 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 ha, our star domain is really strong. Do you still remember that 3 ordinary domain masters came to our star domain before and wanted to share the interests equally with the leader of our power, the orangutan? As a result, 3 people entered the domain together. In the Lord's domain, no one has come out, they are all dead inside. Ha ha ha, I know this too. It was because I heard this news that I moved here all the way. After I came, I discovered that our domain lords are truly strong, and living here is absolutely perfect. Comfortable. That's right, others say that our leader of forces has a bad character, but what does this have to do with us ordinary people? In the central star field of the Milky Way, which leader of forces would attack ordinary people? Who dares to do this? If you do it, all the people at the bottom will run away, and he will be left naked. Not bad, it seems we made the right choice. After listening to this, Jia Yan automatically filtered out the useless ones and only focused on the key words, the land of the domain. A domain? I haven't heard a name for a long time. A name that everyone at the star level used to talk about now appears on a domain master? Haha, this shouldn't be possible. It should be some kind of unique region. When Jia Yan heard the word domain, he was slightly startled, and then laughed. He knew that this field was definitely different from the one he knew before. To put it bluntly, the field he heard about at the beginning, only now after arriving in the galaxy's central star territory, did he know that it was a unique name in the large area of the Orion Arm, and it was also something exclusive to backward areas. There was no such thing in the galaxy's central star territory. Thing. A star level is a star level, and a unique combat ability is a combat ability. There is no field, because a field is just an expression of combat effectiveness. So here, the so-called field should be something different. In other words, This orangutan domain owner actually has some kind of area that can kill 3 major domain owners in one go. Is there some mechanism in it? Jia Yan's clone was lost in thought, but after a while, he stopped caring so much, stood up, paid and left. Where does the money come from? Please, there is no place in this galaxy where you can't exchange money for supplies if you have them. With Jia Yan's wealth, if he casually took out a few grains of sand from the Edisha planet, he would probably be able to exchange it for a month's living expenses for an ordinary weak creature outside. So do we still need to ask him how he got his money? The strong will not lack a little money, they will only lack the materials that the strong want. The small amount of money that ordinary creatures worry about has no chance with the strong. This makes it clear, that guy must have something to rely on, otherwise he would not kill 3 people of the same level easily, so he let me go. There must be a reason for relying on him. But what does this have to do with me? His backhand can deal with 3 ordinary domain lords, how can it not be able to deal with a senior domain lord? Thinking too much. Jia Yan smiled and shook his head, and then his true body, which looked like an earthling, penetrated into the subspace. I thought the other party was hiding a senior domain master at home, but this is the result. I have said it more than once, in the starry sky, the strong are the strong. For those who have reached a certain level of strength, using traps or something is only effective for the same level. If the difference in strength is too big, unless there is a way push the strong person who surpasses you into a star, or throw him into a black hole, otherwise there will really be no effective trap. Strength is strength, it is difficult to subvert, and it is difficult to fight across levels. His strength is probably a bit stronger than the Zerg Queen, and may not be as strong as the dolphin creature. Even if he uses this backup ability, I'm afraid it won't pose much of a threat to me. So I don't need to worry. Jia Yan's confidence in himself comes from countless battles and the confidence he has gained after experiencing so many crises. If a person's self-confidence is based on confidence and actual ability, it is true self-confidence, but blind self-confidence is arrogance. It just so happens that Jia Yan does not belong to the latter. Who? In the subspace, several clones silently returned to the Edisha planet. Leda, who was entrenched on the planet, discovered the scene and was stunned. He thought about many things. For example, he was probably traveling with Jia Yan's protection behind him. In addition, he was afraid that Jia Yan could also do what he did with his own clone, but it would be very embarrassing if others knew about it. Pretending to be your own subordinate. In other words, the danger he thought was definitely not that dangerous. Oh, I behaved so vigilantly and timidly, I'm afraid even adults will see it, and I will disappoint him. Leda sighed in his heart, and then he didn't feel much discomfort and continued to lie down and rest. In fact, even if he were asked to do it over again, he would make the same choice, because this is the true intention of a strong man. He must pursue his own safety and absolute control when doing things. If he takes the risk and goes to the orangutan domain, he conveyed the news in front of the Lord, but was casually killed by the other party. For him, it was definitely something he regretted. Of course, this matter cannot be said to be bad, it is just the method and plan of every strong man. Maybe Jia Yan will entrust him with certain tasks because of his cautiousness in doing things. In short, through this mission, Jia Yan has understood Leda's character. It's not bad, nor good, but he can definitely be regarded as a useful subordinate, which is quite suitable. Good doesn't necessarily mean suitable, but suitable is definitely useful. At least Jia Yan didn't feel too uncomfortable. Wow, my master is going on an adventure again. Adisha must settle the accounts carefully after grabbing something this time. It seems she didn't settle the accounts well last time. When 2 more days passed and Jia Yan was about to formally meet with the orangutan domain master, Edisha was flying around in the air, as if Jia Yan was going to fight again this time. Oh, that's right, Jia Yan's original intention was to beat the opponent, but judging from the nature of the orangutan domain Lord circulated in the outside world, it is normal for him to get angry, so the confrontation is inevitable based on the current situation. Lord Jia Yan, let me travel with you. Leda stood up and prepared to go out with Jia Yan. Jia Yan nodded. As a strong man, when communicating with others, it would be too shabby if he didn't even have a subordinate to help him. What's more, even Leda didn't think there would be any danger in this operation. Even the queen could not be killed. In front of Jia Yan, she was only slightly stronger than a child. If it weren't for the fact that there might be an extremely powerful mid-level being close to the territory lord behind him, Jia Yan wouldn't have been so troublesome in this operation and hit the door in one go. The so-called courtesy before fighting will lead to any disputes in the future, and the truth is also on Jia Yan's side. Leda stood up and stood with Jia Yan beside the energy shield opening specially opened by Edisha's star to lead to the outside world. Edisha's star is becoming more and more formal, and there are even formal entrances and exits. Although it is not impossible to walk from other places, it will be very troublesome. Opening the shield in an infrequently used place requires a lot of energy. Repaired. Therefore, Jia Yan will use normal channels unless he has no choice but to do so. This can be considered an unfriendly place on Edisha's star. Of course, in this way, we can have a formal feeling of home. After all, it is a home, so what can we do without a door? Buzz. Soon, Edisha opened the door, and Jia Yan and Leda flew out of the Edisha star together. Rita, you said it would be interesting if I made Edisha's star bigger in the future and filled it with more people. Jia Yan looked at Edisha scene behind him and asked confusedly. Leda was confused by Jia Yan's question, then looked at Edisha's star and nodded. Yes, sir, the current Edisha's star is indeed too small. If it can be built larger, it may be more comfortable to live in. Of course, your future servants will also lie better. Leda's heart ached a little. Jia Yan's words actually seemed to mean that he would recruit more subordinates in the future. Didn't I agree that I would be a subordinate? You liar, scumbag. Rita felt uncomfortable. But Jia Yan doesn't seem to mean this. Well, the current Edisha's star is more than 1,000 kilometers in diameter, which is indeed too small. I am more than 50 kilometers across, so this place is probably about the same size as an ordinary house. It is too small. What Jia Yan said was profound, but people couldn't figure out what he wanted to say. In short, others definitely don't know what Jia Yan means, and it's not a round worm in his stomach. Jia Yan had no intention of continuing, but just kept silent after saying such incomprehensible words. Because this matter was just a vague thought in his own mind, and he didn't even mention it. Leda took a deep look at the giant creature beside him, which was many times bigger than him. This creature was at the same level as him at the beginning. Oh no, when he first joined the Zerg Queen's force, he was just the first level of the galaxy. Even he was higher than him. The big man now has a mysterious aura that only belongs to him. Well, a truly talented person, or perhaps one of the few geniuses in their huge area, in the entire history, is now so magnanimous that Leda really doesn't understand what he is thinking at all. Jia Yan didn't know what thoughts were running through Leda's heart. If he knew, he would probably not know whether to laugh or cry. What's on his mind? It was just a casual comment with some vague concepts in my mind. So that's how people are. Oh no, that's how intelligent creatures are. Once your status is high, someone will think of you in a higher place for every move you make. In fact, you may not have changed at all, but others will try to elevate you to a higher status. Puff. The subspace was torn apart, and two creatures, one large and one small, emerged from it. Of course, the so-called small is also relative to the huge giant mosquito creature. If it were in front of ordinary creatures, it would definitely be a huge creature like a mountain. With Jia Yan by his side, Leda is really not afraid of anything. Aren't there thighs beside me? Master Jia Yan, the direction is that way, let me clear the way for you, and I will contact their people now. Leda said respectfully to Jia Yan. He already had great respect for Jia Yan, not to mention that now he was under the eyes of his enemies. If even his subordinate disrespected his own master, how could he expect his enemies to respect Jia Yan? Jia Yan said nothing. Leighton knew what he meant, so he took out his communicator and communicated with the person he had agreed to contact. The other side had obviously known about their appearance for a long time, because both parties had agreed that Jia Yan and the others would appear in this area, so surveillance had been strictly guarded, and their appearance was reported immediately. Far away, and soon at the end of the starry sky, a huge creature is coming. These are more than a dozen galaxy-level creatures, none of them are below the primary level of galaxy, and even half of them are powerful people in the middle level of galaxy. Among them, Leda is probably not even ranked in the middle of the pack in terms of strength, and can only be ranked among the bottom 5 at best. If only Leda was here, the momentum would definitely be lost. But at this moment, not only did he not lose, but he also puffed up his chest, as if he had overcome the opponent. The reason for all this is because there is a person on his side who can easily kill the opponent Quan Yi alone, Lord Jia Yan. Jia Yan's terrifying strength, let alone a dozen junior and middle-level powerhouses from the galaxy, even a dozen ordinary domain lords would not be able to suppress his momentum. Theoretically, the weakest dozen domain lords can overthrow a senior territory lord, but it is different when he is replaced by a subspace domain lord. He enters the subspace to carry out a sniper killing plan, and a dozen ordinary domain lords embrace him. If they form a group, they will only be destroyed. So what's the pressure on Leda? There are not even domain lords here. In front of Lord Jia Yan is a piece of cake, not even qualified. Sure enough, when a group of galaxy-level creatures over there were expecting a domain lord to come, they would at least not feel like they were at a disadvantage. However, when they actually saw me, their mentality collapsed one by one. What the hell? This is an ordinary domain lord. Oh my god, it seems like he is more than just an ordinary domain lord. It's so scary, this feeling of power, and this amazing body. Could it be that this territory lord is not an ordinary territory lord, but an existence that has almost reached the level of a senior territory lord? Isn't it terrible? Our gorilla is just a powerful being among ordinary domain masters, but he is actually stronger than our lord. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2440. A group of galaxy-class people originally thought that the level and scene they created were enough. After seeing Jia Yan's true form, they immediately felt that their level was probably not enough. If I had known earlier, I should have asked the adults to come forward in person. They don't think that their lord is not qualified. Even if this territory lord is very strong, his territory lord has behind him a backer who is close to the middle-level territory lord, far beyond the existence of ordinary territory lords. Even if you are a territory lord with subspace talent, theoretically you can escape the pursuit of a territory lord's mid-level creatures, but theories are always just theories. Do you really dare to appear in front of a mid-level territory lord, or even go to being in front of a mid-level creature that is close to the domain lord can probably teach you how to behave. However, if this space-talented creature is a senior domain lord level subspace-talented creature, the situation may be different. It's just that no one on the current opponent's side thinks so. Hello everyone, you are here to welcome me to meet your adults. Okay, let's go. Jia Yan looked at the group of creatures and spoke calmly, without any emotion. Okay, Your Excellency, please come with us. The meeting between strong men was so simple and direct, and neither party did too much testing. When they met for the first time, the testing behavior of both parties stopped. Because the strength gap is too big, if the strength gap between the two parties is not so huge, there may be some testing behavior. But if the difference is too big, testing will be meaningless. The other party doesn't want to do it, and Jia Yan doesn't want to do it. Don't want to waste this time. After a few words, the group continued flying deep into the starry sky. Leda can only be considered at the bottom among this group of strong men, but his sense of security is extremely strong because he is by Jia Yan's side. This is not a clone, but the real body. Even if it was a clone, he had witnessed it with his own eyes before. Jia Yan almost killed Black Sheep with a clone. If the dolphin creature behind Black Sheep hadn't taken action, he might have been able to kill a Black Sheep with a star-level clone. The feat of a domain lord. The clone is that strong, but what about the real body? Moreover, this true form has the kind of subdimensional talent that is better than the average strong person. It is so strong that even a strong person one level above would not want to deal with it. How can he not be safe? Rita, according to my avatar investigation, I am afraid that the Lord of the Star Territory has some back UPS. Before meeting him later, you should enter the subspace first. I have asked Edisha to follow me here. You return to Edisha. But just when Leda was thinking this, Jia Yan's voice surprised him slightly. Okay, Master Jia Yan. But Leda didn't think much about it. Since this was what Jia Yan asked for, he would definitely do it. But after agreeing, he couldn't help but wonder, is there something weird about even Jia Yan paying so much attention to the orangutan domain master's backup man? Of course, he could hear the incomparable confidence in Jia Yan's words. He must have let Leda enter the subspace just for Leda's safety. Boom. A group of creatures, walking together faintly, seemed to be attracted to each other by gravity, especially Jia Yan, the largest one. He uses his own speed to lead everyone's flight, making the surrounding creatures become extremely fast. Probably the fastest flight speed in the vacuum universe they have ever experienced in their lives. It is indeed a terrifying strength. Even if he does not enter the subspace, this guy's speed is faster than the gorilla. This group of creatures gasped one by one. Not long after, they came to a land of starry sky together. Of course, it didn't take long. It had actually been flying for several hours. For a strong person, a few hours of flying would already be a very short distance. It would not exceed a few 100 million kilometers at most. Don't think it's an exaggeration. Each of the strong ones with this level of strength has a unique way of flying. Even if the flying speed of the main body cannot be that fast, if they really want to come up with a plan, they can use curvature flight, or subspace flight, or flight using gravitational waves. Seems to be slow, but the actual speed is extremely terrifying. Therefore, it is possible to fly hundreds of millions of kilometers in a few hours, not to mention so many creatures traveling together. Under the influence of gravity, everyone's speed increase is exaggerated, and they have reached such a speed. Things involving the universe cannot be explained in just a few words. Even Jia Yan can't do it. He just lives according to the laws of the universe. Here. Looking at the darkness ahead, Jia Yan was silent for a moment. It turned out that the space they arrived at was the kind of position that was commonly used by their Zerg Queen forces during the war in the central star field of the Milky Way. The inside could not be seen from the outside, and large swaths of the starry sky were obscured. Even now, he can't see through this kind of space, and he doesn't know what exists in it. Sir, please come in. A group of galaxy-level people looked at Jia Yan with half-smiling smiles. They were watching a joke. If the Territory Lord didn't even dare to enter, then they could laugh. But if he did, it would become a trap for them. Rita. Jia Yan motioned to Leda beside him. Be careful, sir. Leighton nodded, and then a crack in space suddenly opened behind him, which was opened by Jia Yan for him. If Leda relies on his own strength to open the rift in the subspace, it will consume a lot of strength, and the tier will not be very good. Entering the first phase of the subspace will cause a great waste of energy for him, and Jia Yan, the thing that helps him tear apart, is different. Sometime before entering, there won't even be any subspace that affects his body. The faces of the galaxy-class people around them all changed slightly. They didn't know that this strong man would let his subordinates leave openly. If it was for the sake of face, he would take this subordinate in with him. And in this way, it would indicate the existence of this coming person. Seems to have fallen slightly behind. But Jia Yan still does this, which shows that he is really good to the subordinate next to him. Puff. Leda penetrated into the subspace, and within the perception of all living things, he entered 4 or 5 degrees like flying, and then disappeared quickly. Although they couldn't see what was there, they still knew that there might be the headquarters of the subspace domain lord there. The technology that allows objects to exist in subspace for a long time is not an amazing technology in this central galaxy of the Milky Way. It's just that no one is willing to spend so much energy, money, and manufacturing. After all, everything that flows out is property, and it is not convenient for a strong person who is not talented in subspace to create it. Okay, let's go in now. You won't stay with me, right? Jia Yan looked around calmly and said. These galaxy-level people were silent for a while, and then without saying a word, someone took the lead and entered the dense black fog. Jia Yan calmly raised his feet and followed the black mist calmly, as if he was strolling in the courtyard. After entering it, Jia Yan found that it was indeed the kind of positional black fog that would be used in most battles, but this black fog seemed to be much more effective, and it gave people a weird feeling, as if something was hidden. Please come this way. Several Galaxy-class people led the way ahead, and Jia Yan followed them without doubting their presence. Is this guy really not afraid? All the Galaxy-level people are still following Jia Yan. After entering this black mist, they have become fearless. After all, this is the most terrifying area in their entire star field. If it is not for someone with shocking strength, I am afraid that only their family members will be able to do so. If you want to use force, you will never get out of this place. Of course, Jia Yan didn't know what they were thinking, but he took a look at the surroundings, and then faintly explored the space again and again, and then he felt suspicious in his heart. Good guy, even the subspace has been deceived. The degree of deception of the subspace here is actually comparable to that in the North Star. Jia Yan couldn't help but feel shocked. It is extremely astonishing to know how well the North Superstar deceives the subspace, and the fact that it can achieve a similar level in the weird space here shows that the makers here are astonishingly powerful. But as long as the maker himself is not here, what does this kind of shielding mean to me now? Even in the subspace, I can come and go freely in the subspace. This area is nothing to me. Jia Yan is not afraid of such a shield at all. If he wants to enter, he can enter the subspace anytime and anywhere. If this is the other party's reliance, Jia Yan doesn't have to worry. Anyway, it may be extremely scary to ordinary domain lords, but to Jia Yan, who has lived in a superstar for a long time, it is nothing at all. There is only one thing that worries Jia Yan, and that is that if the person who created this area exists, if he is also here, he may threaten Jia Yan's life. In short, no matter what he was thinking about, Jia Yan was already going further and further on the road deep into this black mist area. Finally, a huge palace-like bold building appeared in front of us. Jia Yan was shocked. How much should this cost? In a normal vacuum, the largest building Jia Yan saw was some forces in the black hole area. They built a huge resting space for the existence of the leader of the forces, that is, the domain master, but that space was smaller than the Zerg. The Queen's Palace, which is more than 1,000 kilometers long, is not much bigger. Its diameter of 2,000 kilometers is as large as the sky. But in this black mist, he saw a huge building about 10,000 kilometers in size. Scary. Look at this house, There are so many Edessa stars thrown into it. In comparison, my Edessa stars are a bit shabby. Jia Yan felt sour in his heart. To live in such a nice house, he is either a strong second generation or a bad guy who is full of people's wealth. He did not get it by normal means at all. He is definitely a bad lord. Jia Yan has already defined this guy in his heart. Our adults are inside, please go in. A group of Galaxy-class people stopped leaving outside the big building. Jia Yan didn't doubt him. He had already fallen into someone else's trap anyway, so there was nothing to be afraid of. Besides, if this was their method, he wouldn't be afraid of anything, because the restrictions on him were not big at all. So he flew straight towards this huge palace-shaped building. Click, when flying close to this house, the door of the building suddenly opened. The majestic gate is more than 1,000 kilometers high. In front of it, the giant creature Jia Yan is like a child. He was amazed and then entered the gate. After entering the building gate, you will see the typical appearance of a palace. There is a throne on the high hall inside, and a guy who looks like a chimpanzee is sitting on it. This is the territory lord. After waiting for a long time, I finally met the real owner, which was quite difficult. Are you just an outsider who came to see me? Zhizzy. The orangutan roared loudly and squeaked, completely destroying the majestic feeling. Yes, I am an outsider, but your building is quite impressive. Give me the drawings and construction methods next time. I will study and build one at some time. Jia Yan looked around, as if he didn't care at all about the orangutan creature sitting in the high hall. Ha 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 ha. You are so ridiculous. You think you can get out of my realm? It's funny. Tell me, what do you want to do? The orangutan creature laughed loudly. After laughing, he did not directly want to fall out, but asked Jia Yan what he wanted to do. After all, it had been so long and they couldn't make much preparation, but no one knew yet what Jia Yan was planning to do when he came to his star domain. To be honest, looking at Jia Yan's attitude, although this orangutan creature feels like a big boss, he still has the mentality of a strong man. I immediately understood that this strong man also has his own reliance. So he doesn't want to take action even if he can. Especially for such a move, it seems to be quite unreasonable. I don't know why he is taking the risk, even if he is not willing to do it. I forgot to mention that when later reappeared before, among the group of galaxy-level people who were there to greet him, some people had actually recognized Leda and even told the territory lord. However, the territory lord was not to take it seriously, because he doesn't think that a mere elementary being from the galaxy from the Zerg Queen's force will be able to find a subspace domain master to stand up for them. But his self-identification was quickly slapped in the face. Because what Jia Yan said was really to stand up for the Zerg Queen and the others. That's it? Your Excellency should also have received the news. The subordinate I brought is a member of the Zerg Queen's force, right? In fact, I was also a member of the Zerg Queen's force at the beginning. I recently heard that you and the Zerg Queen they have had conflicts before, and I wonder if I can make things easier for them for my sake. In the future, if we don't mess with each other, we can still make friends. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2441. Jia Yan's calm voice spread throughout this huge building that was thousands of kilometers long. In fact, the Earth is only about 10,000 to 2,000 kilometers in diameter, and these huge architectural palaces are 10,000 kilometers apart. Apart from the huge difference in quality, the size really feels like a small planet. It's really an exaggeration. Coupled with the feeling of the orangutan creature sitting high up in the palace looking at him, people who didn't know better thought they had met the final boss. However, this orangutan creature only has the disease of a super strong person, but it does not have the life of a super strong person. Jia Yan didn't lie to him at all. After Jia Yan finished speaking, the orangutan creature above him laughed and kept squeaking. The fangs and claws are exposed on the head of the human-like creature, which looks quite ferocious. My friend, it turns out you were sent by the Zerg Queen and those people? Ha ha ha, it's really funny. If you hadn't told me, I might have forgotten the Zerg Queen and the others, but if you did, I would be more interested in them. Yes, and are you here to warn me with your attitude? Although I, the orangutan, am not a person who takes revenge, zhizi, but I am definitely not someone who doesn't know how to fight back when threatened. The orangutan creature's harsh words made Jia Yan feel unhappy in his heart. So, what's your attitude? Are you still going to cause trouble for the Zerg Queen and the others? If I say yes, what are you going to do? The orangutan creature preaches without any concessions. If so, then I will definitely take care of this matter to the end. Your Excellency, do you want to take care of this matter even if you have to fight with me, an orangutan? Yes, even if I fight you, I will definitely take care of it. Mr. Orangutan, it seems you want to fight me. Jia Yan's eyes turned cold, and the giant mosquito's compound eyes were filled with bursts of ice. The orangutan creature also stood up, but did not directly reply to Jia Yan's words. He just looked at the entire palace and then looked at Jia Yan mysteriously. Zhizi, although I don't know your name yet, my friend, I understand very well how strong you are, a senior domain master? You are also a senior domain master with subspace talents. You are very strong, very strong. I understand how strong you are in a normal universe. If you fight, I won't win, but since you carelessly came to my territory, winning or losing is not up to you. Although the orangutan creature is relatively violent, he is not a being seeking death. Especially after sensing Jia Yan's power, he has already made a decision to use his backup plan. Buzz. Just listen to the sound inside the hall, as if some switch has been turned on, and the space suddenly tightens. Huh? It can actually become a little tighter. This is even better than the North Star. Jia Yan was shocked, but his heart was still so calm, without too many disturbances. Because even if the space in this palace becomes tighter, I am afraid that the strength of ordinary territory lords, and even more powerful territory lords, will drop by a large level, but he is different. As I said a long time ago, the experience on the North Star will be a treasure for his life. There, Jia Yan not only gained strength, but also realized the real battle of the strong, and experienced the most terrifying environment in the entire galaxy. Therefore, in the current situation, although the pressure of the environment is much stronger than that of the ordinary space in the North Giant, compared to the extreme environment in the North Giant, it is still far behind. In particular, Jia Yan once used energy to practice in the North Star. The pressure created by the large amounts of ores is definitely more exaggerated than the current scene. Not to mention that when he led the team to fight and became famous, a large number of enemy troops would bring equipment that affected his subspace talent when they went out. It was a mess and had everything. After experiencing all that, where are they now? So in terms of adaptability and habits, there is nothing surprising about him. Oh, are you scared? That's right. Generally strong people, even a domain lord, will be frightened when they see such pressure. To tell you the truth, in my palace, I once killed Pass. The orangutan creature looked at Jia Yan calmly, then stretched out his palm and placed a number that everyone in the Interstellar could understand. That's 5. There are 5 territory lords. Do you know? Each of them can be a powerful presence in the starry sky. 2 of them don't even know how they died. They just died inside my palace. So, you want to be the 6th one. The orangutan creature seems to be completely confident of winning, so he doesn't seem to be in a hurry. Jia Yan, on the other hand, looked at the scene around him and nodded calmly, but then shook his head. The person who did it was baffled. Only Jia Yan himself knows that his nod means that he knows that the orangutan creature used this Jedi to kill the 5 major domain lords before, and this place does have the ability to kill ordinary domain lords, even stronger domain lords. Even a being like the Zerg Queen would probably be suppressed and unable to move after arriving here. But he is different. His strength and experience, as well as the experience of having his entire body suppressed and shrunk in the North Star, made his ability to withstand pressure terrifying. So after he nodded, he shook his head again. After completing these actions, Jia Yan did it neatly and did not give the orangutan creature any more time to express his arrogant attitude. Because he's tired of it. I originally wanted to see what this guy's confidence and trump cards were, but now I'm a little disappointed. So, Jia Yan suddenly moved. Can you just nod? Haha, that's right. Ordinary domain lord creatures are here, but it's difficult to even move. If you can move, you are considered a senior domain lord. By the way, I haven't fought with a senior domain lord yet. Well, I thought that the senior domain lord would be as powerful as that old man from my family, but I didn't expect that the truth made me lose. Puff. Groan. The orangutan creature looked at Jia Yan and laughed at him in a sarcastic manner. After finally talking to a powerful senior domain lord, he didn't want to let this fun die all at once. He enjoyed this feeling of facing off against a strong person that he couldn't deal with so much, but he felt helpless against his family's treasure. But what made this orangutan creature's face change drastically was, when he finished speaking the above long series of words, he only saw the senior giant Mosquito standing in front of him, thousands of kilometers away from him, suddenly at the door of the hall. Suddenly the figure moved. Varied. Shouldn't this guy be unable to move? What's happening here? Too fast? You can actually move. Damn it, you can't catch me. The orangutan creature became anxious and quickly jumped back. The pressure in this palace will only affect the existence he wants to target, but will not affect himself. In other words, it will affect whoever he wants to affect, which is quite convenient. So even if Jia Yan suddenly used amazing speed, he still didn't think that the giant Mosquito could catch him. But something even more surprising happened to him. He was just about to jump behind the throne and use the golden throne to resist the sting of the giant Mosquito's front legs, but he only saw a flash of black in front of his eyes. Chiang. A sharp and cold foot touched the forehead of this arrogant orangutan creature. It was just a hair away, about 10 meters, and it was about to pierce into his head. For a huge creature that is tens of kilometers in size, 10 meters is like a human being on Earth who is only 1 millimeter away. It is so close that it makes one's scalp numb. Friend, I think, you may have misunderstood the strength of the senior domain master. If a senior level existence is so easily defeated by your childish moves, then he is not called a senior domain master. Or rather, do you have any other more powerful means? Jia Yan's compound eyes were close to the face of the orangutan creature. The insect creature's emotionless gaze made people feel that the sky was cold. At least that's what the current orangutan creatures think. What the hell? What is this thing called? The orangutan creature's eyes were widened, feeling that its values and world were about to collapse. Is the strong man coming in front of me so terrifying? Ignoring the powerful trap set by your ancestors. How can this be? The pressure of the palace that had failed many times in the past was completely ineffective in front of the senior domain master who came here. In an instant, the orangutan creature understood the huge gap between the two sides. He even teased Jia Yan and asked, "What other more powerful methods do you have?" He was so frightened that he was speechless for a long time. There is a more powerful method. This is all his trump card, and it is what he considers to be the strongest method. In the past, he even dreamed of using this method to kill the powerful middle-level domain lords. Oh no, he just dared to think about it, because the grandfather who arranged this method had not yet reached the intermediate level of territory lord, So he also understood that this was wishful thinking. But he really didn't know that even a senior domain master couldn't deal with this trap. Could it be? It was just as the giant mosquito creature in front of me said, I had underestimated the heroes in the world. Your Excellency, I apologize to you for plotting against you. In the central star field of the Milky Way, it is common for similar strong people to immediately admit defeat when they know that they are not strong enough. Even this orangutan creature who is prone to anger found his position in an instant and hurriedly moved toward Jia. Yan recognized his mistake. The speed at which the conversation changed was completely different from the threatening and complacent look just now. It is in this kind of place where strong people are more abundant that so many chameleons are raised. In more rural areas, the strong are strong and have the bearing of a strong. In many places, even the strong are just even if he dies, he still has to stick to his so-called strong demeanor. Of course, it is impossible to judge which aspect is better, but both aspects have gradually evolved due to the unique atmosphere and region. It can only be said that both are suitable for the local area. Oh? Now you're apologizing. Jia Yan smiled coldly, so, do you know where you went wrong? Also, do you think you should pay something for your life? Jia Yan said calmly, that's how he is, he always treats himself with courtesy first and then fights with others. As a domain master who has cultivated to a senior level, his mind has already followed his own will. Even if it was possible for him to kill this orangutan creature now, he still tolerated it a little after thinking about the background behind it. When he fights with the so-called being who is close to the mid-level territory lord, the possibility of losing is extremely high. Even if he can escape, what about the Zerg Queen and the others? The purpose of my trip is to help the Zerg Queen resolve their grievances and create a safer environment for their development in the next few years. Instead of causing the Zerg Queen and the others to be more dangerous or even catastrophic. So he immediately decided not to kill this orangutan creature. But after all, this guy took action against one of his senior domain masters. If he didn't have to pay for anything, it would be a huge loss to a senior domain master. Sir, I can compensate you. In addition, you mentioned that I have a grudge against the Zerg Queen. I am willing to just forget it. I will never trouble them again in the future. If I trouble them, sir, you can come and take my life anytime, anywhere. The orangutan creature said that there was still a trace of revenge thought in his heart, but it gradually calmed down. Indeed, no matter whether the creature in front of him can fight against his ancestor, it is a certainty that he can kill him with one blow, not to mention the subordinates from the outside world have spread rumors that this is the case. This guy is a subdimensional talent. If a person with strong subspace talent becomes an assassin, he will probably be able to kill everyone at the same level with accuracy. Even if he has the protection of his ancestor, there will always be times when he is negligent. If he is assassinated at that time, he will die. Come on, you really can't mess with this subspace talented senior domain master. So he was scared. A domain lord level powerhouse, even if his temper is really that hot, is definitely not a fool. Otherwise, if he had a hot temper with everyone he met, he would have died long ago. In the central star field of the Milky Way, where the strong are outnumbered, those with that kind of personality won't survive long. So the orangutan creature immediately made an accurate judgment. Oh? You are willing to make peace with the Zerg Queen, right? Also. Are you also willing to compensate? Very good, then, you can compensate me for this building. Jia Yan looked at the orangutan creature who changed his tone of voice very quickly, as if appreciating it, and then calmly said the compensation thing that he had just had an idea to think of. After he said this, he couldn't help but praise his wit. The technology used in such a huge building is incredible, and there are paved flat areas everywhere, and there are even several floors. Not to mention that he can live in it himself. If he really wants to pretend, it can accommodate dozens of times the Earth's population. And the pressure here. After Jia Yan felt the pressure here just now, he actually had a faint feeling. That's the pressure here. It's probably based on the design of superstars such as North Superstar. I'm afraid the designer has lived on Superstar. The idea is probably to imitate the superstar. This kind of thing, if done well, will have a huge effect. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2442. This, sir, this building was built by my ancestors. They spent a lot of energy on it. It doesn't just belong to me. The orangutan creature felt like breaking out in a cold sweat. Although this building was indeed made by his extremely powerful ancestor, it was actually given to him. But in this situation, if he didn't tell the story about this ancestor, he might even save his life. Your greatest reliance will also be lost. Oh? Ancestor? Jia Yan pretended not to understand. Yes, sir, my ancestor is a strong man who is close to the middle level of territory lord. However, he is very old. I am really worried that if he hears this, he will be so angry that he fails to be promoted. In that case, I will be unlucky. Maybe my ancestor I will also cause trouble for you. The orangutan creature no longer looked so irritable. He rolled his eyes and said the above words in an extremely sinister manner. Actually, the meaning of his words is very simple when combined, that is, my ancestor is a strong man close to the middle level of domain lord. If you dare to do anything to me, or want to rob me of this building, then just wait to be hunted down by my ancestors. Oh, it turns out that you have such powerful relatives. Jia Yan looked really shocked. Just when the orangutan creature sneered in his heart, thinking that Jia Yan was really afraid of the ancestor behind him, Jia Yan said something as cold as ice. This sentence made him feel as if he had been doused with ice water, as if he was falling into nothingness. Bottom abyss. But even if I am a mid-level territory lord, I, Jia Yan, still have to fight. Thinking that I am strong, I can arbitrarily impose tyranny on the weak? Can I still protect my descendants from doing such a sinful thing? To tell you the truth, don't say that your ancestor is not an intermediate territory lord. Today he has reached the intermediate territory lord. I have to decide on the compensation. Your Excellency, just tell me whether you are willing or not. Jia Yan's attitude is extremely tyrannical, and there is a sign that if the other party dares to say no, he will directly kill him. Ah, are you not afraid of my ancestors? This, if you have something to say, I will give it to you. Can't I give it to you? The orangutan creature was originally prepared to argue a few more words, but when Jia Yan was speaking, he had already brought his feet closer to the orangutan creature's eyes, until there was only a centimeter difference between his feet and his eyes. You must know that for a creature that is dozens of kilometers long, the distance is only 1 centimeter, just like a human being is only a micron away from another person. It is difficult to control at all. If it is not careless, it will directly penetrate the orangutan. The creature's eyeballs. Moreover, the eyeball is an organ that even a strong person cannot repair. If it is injured, it will be a lifelong regret. So the orangutan creature panicked instantly and quickly agreed to Jia Yan's request. Very good, sir, in addition to compensation, you are also willing to listen to me and not go against the Zerg Queen's forces, right? Don't do it, right? Since they have you as their backer, I naturally don't dare to do it, right? The orangutan creature was almost crying. He felt that he had never encountered such an unreasonable and powerful person in all his years of life. There was an existence close to the mid-level domain lord behind him. After hearing this, he acted as if he hadn't heard. You know, This is a strong man who is close to the middle level of the territory lord. If he comes, he will be able to sweep this large area. Jia Yan didn't listen at all. He was almost speechless, feeling as if he had met an iron fool. Okay, then you can remove the defense mechanism of this building, and then tell me the control methods and plans, and I will handle the rest. Okay, I will lift it, sir, please listen. The orangutan creature became dejected. A large number of creatures in the outside world are feeling proud at this time. They believed that the strong man who entered the black mist was definitely hopeless. Haha, the strong man just now seemed extremely confident, but he is definitely going to die, because your building is not a place that ordinary domain lords can bear. Last time the 3 domain lords went in together, they all died inside, not to mention he was alone. Haha, pretend, look at him pretending. When I saw that face before, I thought this guy must be seeking death. Listen, there was a movement in the building just now. Maybe that guy has passed away and we don't even have a chance to go over and curse a few words. You deserve it. Let me tell you. Our Lord is too kind. We have already said that we should take in all the nearby forces as soon as possible. There won't be any random cats and dogs running around, huh? The junior and middle-level creatures in the galaxy outside were chatting enthusiastically and feeling extremely confident. One by one, they discovered that the 10,000-kilometer large building standing proudly in front of them actually began to shake violently. What? The battle isn't over yet. Why is the building shaking? Oh my god, there seems to be a lot of movement. Could it be that the fighting inside has reached this level? It's impossible. The last time 3 territory lords entered, they didn't cause such a big commotion. This time, just 1 territory lord entered and made such a big commotion. No, look, this building is actually. In the corner ahead, we entered the subspace. What's going on? They instantly became nervous. You must know that when the ancestor of the Lord came here and built the building in front of him for his favorite and most talented descendant, he spent a lot of energy and then explained that it was best not to move the building. Besides, the biggest problem is that he never said that this building has the ability to enter subspace. But what is going on in front of me? Entered subspace? There were 2 of them, completely confused as to what was going on. After all, this picture is too weird. A huge building that is thousands of kilometers in size and is as big as the Earth is slowly being swallowed up by a huge black hole in subspace. This picture makes people feel powerless and fearful. Ordinary people with strong subspace talents cannot do such a thing, not to mention that this area seems to be suppressed by power. Who has the ability to make the entire huge building enter the subspace in such a space? It's hard to imagine, okay. Boom 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 boom. As they continued to ponder, the huge building that seemed to be dragged slowly, but was actually extremely fast, was dragged into the subspace, as if it was being swallowed by an invisible prehistoric beast. Little by little, half of it entered the subspace. Internal. Then, they discovered that a terrifying figure that looked like a gorilla flew out of the building dejectedly, looking back from time to time at the building they were once most proud of. Grown-ups. Master Orangutan, what's going on? A group of junior and middle-level powerhouses from the galaxy immediately rushed forward and asked in great surprise. The orangutan creature looked at the group of subordinates with a sinister look in its eyes. Is it true that the pot is not opened and lifted? Didn't you see this building being pulled by the subspace? They all know that the territory lord they brought is a territory lord with subspace talent, so they should be able to imagine what happened, but they still ask. Do I really have to lose all my face? This orangutan domain master really wants to take action. But he didn't do this, because he knew very well that in his past experience, he had created the concept that his buildings were invincible, and all his subordinates probably didn't think that he could actually be defeated in the building. It's over, none of you should mention the Zerg Queen again. Unless they come to provoke us, don't have anything to do with them anymore. Do you understand? Listening to his master's words, the smart ones immediately understood something from the master's demeanor, the tone of his speech, and the strange scene of the moving building. Okay, sir, we will never mention the Zerg Queen again in the future. Haha, I've told you a long time ago that the power of clowns is not enough for us to deal with, so let's not mention it. These few are relatively smart, but there are still some who are not smart, and they continue to ask questions with extremely stubborn heads. But, sir, does the Zerg Queen's power have anything to do with your building? Yes, sir, you haven't answered us yet. Why is your strongest building being pulled into the subspace? Do we have to change our base in the future? Okay, changing the base and changing the scenery may bring a new atmosphere to our power. Puff. The words of an elementary creature from the galaxy stopped abruptly. The orangutan creature's fists were bleeding. Even though he had no power to resist in front of Jia Yan, in the eyes of the primary creatures in the galaxy, he was the irresistible god, the god who could not resist. He killed the junior subordinate of Zing who spoke the words with one blow, causing a group of high-level subordinates around him to remain silent and extremely shocked. You must know that although the orangutan creature is relatively violent, he is not a random person. He kills his subordinates indiscriminately. If it weren't for this, they wouldn't have come to work under this strong man who didn't have a good reputation. But now, his good reputation has been ruined and he has killed one of his subordinates. No matter what the reason is, some people will have a gap in their lives. This matter is not allowed to be mentioned again. The future of that building does not belong to me, but don't forget, I am still a territory lord, and I still have my ancestors behind me, so don't think about anything, do you understand? Ming, understood. All the junior and middle-level creatures in the galaxy nodded silently. They even did not dare to ask more questions about why the building entered the subspace. They just watched helplessly as the last shadow of the building gradually disappeared inside the twisted subspace. From a distance, I felt that the building was flying into the depths of the subspace, and the surface of the entire building quickly climbed up to resist the distortion of the subspace, and the orangutan creature became silent. After the silence, his expression became vicious. Okay, you all go back to your work. This matter cannot be spread outside, otherwise I will hear that one will be killed one by one. In addition, it won't take long for the building to come back. Even if I ask the ancestors to rebuild one, it is not impossible. No, there's nothing to worry about, you know. Yes. A group of junior and intermediate galaxy creatures fled from this place as if they were terrified. Only the corpses of the galaxy junior creatures floating in the starry sky were telling their own misery. After today, the dominance of orangutans will be greatly reduced. But he didn't care so much. If his anger couldn't be satisfied just now, he might go crazy. Seeing that the traces in the subspace were slowly fading away, the orangutan creature took out its own communicator. This is a communicator made with space folding technology. It is relatively advanced even in a black hole area, let alone in the central star field of the Milky Way. Of course, technology is not more advanced in a black hole area. After all, technology it is something that is somewhat opposed to the strong system. On the contrary, in some edge areas far away from the center of the galaxy, technology is prevalent, and that is probably the most advanced place. Ancestor, my building has been robbed. Please let me make the decision. Yes, he is very strong, but he is definitely not as strong as you, Ancestor. However, he is a strong person with subspace talent. Under my nose, he pulled the entire building into subspace at a very fast speed, huh? Ancestor, what do you mean, don't care about this matter? This. I understand, subspace talent, don't mess with it for the time being. Okay, I understand, I hope my ancestor will be promoted to the intermediate level of domain lord as soon as possible. Click. When the communicator was turned off, the orangutan creature almost crushed the communicator in his hand. But he still didn't do that. Not to mention that the communicator was extremely expensive. The other thing was that the communicator in his hand could directly communicate with his ancestor. It might be a life-saving artifact in times of crisis, so he couldn't bear it. The orangutan had no place to vent his anger, so he could only use the power of his brain waves to detonate the corpse again. The explosion was full of blood and it seemed that it would save someone to clean it up. Jia Yan? Even my ancestor doesn't want to touch me. Is a person with strong subspace talents really that powerful? A flash of regret flashed through the heart of the orangutan creature. He regretted that he had provoked the Zerg Queen's forces. Although in the end he chased and killed the Zerg Queen's forces, making them look like rats crossing the street, and finally ran to the forces on the other side of the passage to seek shelter, but thinking back, he got nothing at all. Now not only did he get nothing, but he even lost his strongest support, the building that consumes a lot of money. That palace building was the proud work of his ancestor 150 years ago. If it were still there, he could guarantee that he would be invincible under the senior domain lords. It's a pity that it's useless to regret now. The building was taken away by the strong space talent with his own subspace talent. There will probably be no place to look for it in the future. My heart hurts so much. I'm afraid I won't be able to be so impetuous when I act in the future. Even with the help of my ancestor, I can't be by his side all the time. Next time someone like this comes to me who I can't fight against, I am afraid that my life will be at risk. The nature of the orangutan creature has changed at this time, and perhaps it will transform into a good-natured orangutan domain master in the future. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2443. Jia Yan, who left at a high speed, did not consider that his appearance had brought about a change in the outlook on life of the arrogant and extremely tyrannical orangutan domain master. Even if he knew, I'm afraid he would just laugh it off. As mentioned in the previous book, in the world of the strong, in addition to the basic intention, everyone will probably show various personalities throughout their long life. This is not a game world, but a stage in life. Even many strong people can find new breakthrough directions in the process of changing personalities. In fact, the kind of strong people who remain unchanged are likely to be the ones who fall in the end, because they have only one way to deal with things, and they will not be able to get through it when they encounter real difficulties or psychological difficulties. It's not that Jia Yan's personality hasn't changed. In fact, he has undergone detailed personality adjustments and changes from the time he was born as a mosquito to the present. But after 100 years, it becomes less scary, not to mention that he only lived for more than 100 years. Years old, compared to other domain lord level powerhouses, who are often thousands of years old, his life is not even 1/10 of others, so it is natural that he does not seem to have changed much. Maybe in 100 years, he will be completely different from what he is now. I hope that the backer behind the strong orangutan will not be as brainless as the orangutan creature. If he comes to trouble me, there is a high probability that he will not be able to do anything to me, but will only harm the Zerg Queen and the others. Of course. I am afraid that a being who can cultivate to the intermediate level of a domain lord will not be so brainless. Offending a senior level subspace talented person like me will only cause chaos in the future. Jia Yan used his talents to stabilize the huge palace in the subspace, with a somewhat dazed look on his face. But his random thoughts did not affect the emotions of Adisha and Leda. The small light and shadow mosquito transformed into a 10-kilometer wide light and shadow mosquito in subspace, flying around this huge palace that was as big as a planet. Wow! Wow! Oh my god, Adissa is going to faint. It's so big, Adissa can't bear it. It's so big. Leda, you said it's so big, right? Yes, Lady Edisha, it's so big. Lady Jiayan, it's so big. Jiayan glanced at Edisha and Leda, who was making noises at the side, and almost blurted out the words MMP. What are these two guys shouting about? So big? Will it be misunderstood? Although my brother's is really big, don't shout out. Jiayan looked at the tail needle of his giant mosquito body. It was 10 kilometers long. How could anyone bear such a big body? Pooh! What are you thinking about again? Jiayan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He felt that he was being led astray by Aidasha. He felt that he might be in trouble in the future. In the past, even a little fooling around by Edisha would give him a headache. Now that he has Leda who follows Edisha and cheers for her, like a little follower, I am afraid that he will be even more capable in the future. Being led astray by both of them. But, it's quite fun, that's all. Jiayan smiled bitterly, but did not stop the two of them from exclaiming. In fact, Jiayan was very proud. Look at what he gained this time. The 10,000-kilometer-sized palace was placed next to the Edisha star, which directly turned the Edisha star, which was originally a planet, into a small toy. One palace could accommodate several Edisha stars. Moreover, the inside of this hall is grand and domineering. It looks like a serious palace, very impressive. Compared with the previous plundering, no, the filial piety given by various forces, Jiayan is extremely satisfied with this harvest. Look, this is the real seizure. What are the other ones called? Some ore? Some energy? Some miscellaneous gadgets? Please, am I, the dignified senior domain master Jiayan, someone who lacks so many gadgets? Should I be sent away as a beggar? You look down on me, Jiayan, so much. Jiayan couldn't help but harshly criticize the forces that had compensated and paid tribute to him in the past. Of course, he fully understood that those forces in the past were not willing to provide such materials. Even if they were, they would not be able to provide them, because behind them, there would definitely be no backers close to the mid-level powerhouses of the territory lord. Tisk, tisk, this palace is big, but if it is too big, it will be difficult to move in the subspace, and I still have to be stable in the starry sky. It is very troublesome. Jiayan thought about this in his heart, and then suddenly called out to Edisha. Edisha, do you understand? Is there any way to add a subspace propulsion module to this big guy? If so, get it done as soon as possible. Once its control method is worked out, I will let you operate it. When Edisha heard this, she felt as if she had been possessed by a restraining spell, and then she couldn't help but turned around with joy, extremely shocked. Master, Master! Are you saying that it is also controlled by Edissa? Wow, wow, Edissa is so surprised. Edissa will be able to control such a big palace. Edissa must survey and map quickly. Give the master a feasible plan immediately, and the master must not let Edissa manipulate you. Edisha looked surprised, as if Jiayan would not control the palace for her. But if you use your brain a little, you will know that Jiayan has no other feasible solution except controlling it. He can't go out and buy another smart brain device, and he doesn't trust other smart brains either. Of course, it is also gratifying for Jiayan that Edissa is happy. It's good that the little guy is happy, and since it mentioned surveying and mapping, it means there is a chance for this matter. After all, the brain is not a human brain. Without a roughly certain chance, it will not say such wasteful words as surveying and mapping. After stabilizing the palace in the subspace for a while, Jiayan was a little tired. Then he looked at Leda, who had long been exhausted, and returned to the Edisha star to rest. Jiayan thought about it. Leda's talent was not in the subspace. This is a bit troublesome. It can't be so troublesome every time he enters and exits the subspace, right? he decided to solve this problem in the near future. After all, the incompatibility of his capable talents with his own talent was also a very big problem, and there would definitely be trouble in the future. So, I have to help Leda to create a subspace talent, or something similar to it. Well, speaking of it, my own subspace talent cannot be said to be innate. It seems that this matter is also a research direction. Well, there is still a long time to survive in the future, so you must find some challenges and fun for yourself, otherwise the long road to becoming a strong person will be a bit boring. As Jia Yan thought about it, he began to take a quick look at it. After all, in order to stabilize this huge palace, he could only stay in a daze, and there was nothing else to do except think wildly. In fact, Jia Yan did not directly leave the area belonging to the orangutan domain owner. Although it is difficult for outsiders to detect their whereabouts, the two of them are hiding deep in the subspace behind the power of the orangutan domain master, and are constantly wandering around. On the one hand, it is indeed difficult for Jia Yan to move quickly with the palace under such a heavy load. On the other hand, he is observing the outside world. If the other party makes any big moves, it means that the orangutan territory lord may want to make some moves against the Zerg Queen's forces, so that he can respond in time. The most important thing to guard against is the mid-level strong person who is close to the domain lord. Revenge is often an emotional thing, so it happens quickly, so as long as there are no problems in the near future, the possibility of problems in the future will be extremely low. After waiting for about 2 weeks, during this period, Edisha has been busy in the subspace, while Jia Yan has been helplessly maintaining the action of jerking the huge palace, no matter how strong he is and how powerful his brain waves are. Horrible, it is inevitable to feel a little uncomfortable. Fortunately, Jia Yan has a lot of resources to supplement himself. As an evolved beast, Jia Yan's unique and extremely efficient condensate absorption method shocked Leda, who saw Jia Yan's absorption method for the first time. I know, Master Jia Yan has had terrible talents in the past, but no one else has discovered it, he. Leda almost doubted himself, thinking that he was not born into a good race. Look at Jia Yan, he uses his own condensation to absorb any substance that contains power, and almost absorbs most of the power inside. This efficiency and terrifying absorption speed make him really think that he should be born to inferior races. Of course, when he looked back, he realized that he was not that unbearable, but Jia Yan was just too scary. Evolved beasts, I remember that the original queen of the Zerg said about Lord Jia Yan's race, and I still vaguely remember that there are many ancient legends about evolved beasts are quite terrifying in the starry sky over the Orion Arm. Rumors, I didn't expect these rumors to be true. Are the evolved beasts really such a terrifying race? Leda's life of suspicion didn't last long. It's not a shame to be inferior to Master Jia Yan. Instead, after learning about Jia Yan's absorption talent, he has balanced a lot. Otherwise, he always thought that he was lagging behind Jia Yan due to lack of diligence and other reasons. Now he knows that this is not the case. I have found some confidence. Just work hard in the future. Following such a talented person, Leda will definitely have a chance. Wow, Master, Edissa has been surveyed and mapped. The machines placed in these places can temporarily push this big thing to move, but in the future, more machines and resources will be needed to push it more smoothly. Edisha suddenly flew to Jia Yan's side, babbling and shouting at Jia Yan. Oh! Let's do it quickly. To be honest, I'm already a little tired. Jia Yan replied excitedly to the good news. Edisha took the order and left, while Jia Yan began to continue to sell short. In this way, about 2 weeks have passed. In other words, they have stayed in this starry sky for another month. Including the time wasted here in the first place, it has been almost 2 months. On this day, Jia Yan worked very hard, and then found that the pressure was relieved. It turned out that in a corner of the palace, another propeller that could operate in subspace was exerting its power, spraying out energy to bear the pressure of the palace. About there. Master, you can let go and let Adisha give it a try. Adisha asked Jia Yan to let go and control whether the palace could be run. Jia Yan released his brainwave power according to his words, and the entire palace suddenly began to become disorderly, and even felt like it was being swallowed up by six-dimensional space. Fortunately, at the same time, a burst of brilliance shone in the subspace. Adisha operated the thrusters in the subspace and the energy shield to protect the palace. In an instant, the entire huge palace of 10,000 kilometers shone brightly, and gradually disappeared from the sky. The chaotic rolling posture became stable. Okay, Adisha is a genius. Aditha was rolling around in excitement. Jia Yan also satisfied its little bragging and nodded in praise. Yes, Adisha is really a little genius. It will be up to you to manage this palace in the future. Wow, the master also called Adisha a genius. Great. Adisha will definitely manage the palace well. Master, don't worry. Jia Yan was very tired. After thinking about it, he flew into the Adisa star. The palace outside seems to be under control, but God knows how far this control goes. If a sudden accident or excessive pressure causes the palace to be cut by the subspace, he will be in trouble while resting inside. It's not that she doesn't believe in Adisha, Jia Yan assured. Leda, is your talent in brainwave power? Jia Yan did not sit down when he entered Adisha's star, but came to where Leda was. After all, compared with the 10,000-kilometer-long palace, the Adisha star with a diameter of just over 1,000 kilometers seems very small. Two creatures that are dozens of kilometers in size live together. Not many people know about it, and not many people know about it. People thought they had some special relationship, otherwise why would they live together in such a small place where you can hear farts even when you sleep? Of course, Jia Yan doesn't have any such thoughts at all. His orientation is normal. Leda raised his head and looked at the approaching Jia Yan. Having been with Jia Yan for a longer time, Leda finally understood Jia Yan's attitude towards him, that is, before being subordinates, they were friends first, and even friends were above subordinates, so when he acted before, I always consider whether Leda can succeed and whether he will be in danger. Therefore, although he was grateful to Jia Yan, he was no longer as aloof as before. Gradually, he dared to chat more and his attitude became more normal. Yes, Master Jia Yan, my talent is in the power of brainwaves, but you also know that my talent, to put it bluntly, at this level, is not even a talent. The average strong person of the same level, as long as you focus on brainwave power, you might be able to develop brainwave power stronger than mine. Leda was asked about her pain points and felt helpless. His talent was considered powerful when he was just born, and he was even recognized as a heavenly being by his seniors. But as his strength improved step by step, he came to understand. His brainwave power talent is actually nothing, especially in the central star field of the Milky Way where geniuses are abundant. His meager subspace talent is not even a talent. People without talent only need a master. If you give him some advice or practice hard, you will be stronger than him in terms of brainwave power. So he was extremely bitter. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2444. After Jia Yan listened, he thought about it and then tentatively said what he wanted to say. So, Leda, do you want to have a little bit of subspace talent? I'm really just talking about a little bit. It may not even be as good as your brainwave power talent, but a strong person, if you have a little bit of subspace talent, I'm afraid there are some benefits to you. But don't be too happy. This is my first time trying this kind of thing. There may be unknown flaws, such as reducing your combat effectiveness, or some unpredictable results. Are you still willing to give it a try? The first half of what Jia Yan said made Leta's eyes light up, and with his words, the excitement on Leta's face became more and more intense. But the second half of the words made his whole expression stagnant. Then Jia Yan finished speaking, and Leta fell into a long silence. How could Leta not want subspace talent? But since Jia Yan also said that there might be an accident, he had to consider the bad consequences of this matter. A powerful being not only trusts others, even if this other person is the only powerful person he can rely on at the moment, but since the powerful person himself said that there might be an accident, how could he not consider the possibility at all? Danger. After thinking for a long time, Leta raised his head and looked at the giant mosquito creature that was now much taller than him. Master Jia Yan, I would like to ask, if I have subspace talent, is it possible for me to learn part of your combat power? Yes, this is what Leta wants most now. If there is a chance to learn Jia Yan's fighting style, then he is willing to try it. After all, after explaining Jia Yan's fighting power, he understood that Jia Yan's fighting power is even among the so-called superstars in the black hole area. Genius level, that is, combat type. If he can master 1.5 of Jia Yan's moves, then in the future he may have the opportunity to improve his combat effectiveness to a higher level, at least he will not be said to have no talent at all. As long as there is such a possibility, even if it is unlikely, he is willing to give it a try. Let me ask you, among the strong people who grew up in this strong system, which one did not work hard to become strong? Now there is a slightly dangerous opportunity in front of us, and everyone will be excited. Leta, the possibility you mentioned is certainly possible. As long as you have subspace talent, even just a little bit, I can teach you some fighting skills in subspace. Jia Yan smiled and nodded without any hesitation. His subspace talent is very strong, but to say that he is as strong as he is today with his subspace talent alone is to underestimate Jia Yan's other talents, such as the positive and negative power of Yin and Yang Dao, and his evolution. If a beast body only possesses a part of the subspace talent and learns some combat skills from itself, then it would be disappointing to think that it could be as strong as him. Sir, I'm willing to give it a try. I hope it won't be too dangerous. Leta exhaled, and then her words showed determination. He had made a complete decision. Jia Yan knew what he was worried about, but who was he? How could he let one of his subordinates be killed or injured just because of his own speculation? Very good, then increase your strength and give it a try when you are ready. Don't worry, although my method may cause injuries, it is unlikely to cause you to be seriously injured and dying. That's good. After Leta heard this, he let out a long sigh of relief. If the worst thing was just the injury, then why was he still hesitating? He had already made up his mind. Of course, all Jia Yan wants is his attitude. If he tries it with an indifferent attitude, he will not help that kind of person. Fortunately, after careful consideration, Leta decided to let Jia Yan give it a try, so that Jia Yan would be the one willing to help. Jia Yan then returned to his small palace and resumed the previous consumption of maintaining a huge palace outside. To be honest, after spending a period of time in a palace that was 10,000 kilometers away from the outside world, when he returned to the palace around him where he might even have trouble turning around, everything that was originally quite comfortable became completely wrong, which made Jia feel uncomfortable. Yan is helpless. It seems that humans are still animals accustomed to enjoying themselves. Jia Yan's loss seems relatively large, but it is just a slight loss of brainwave power. What's more, he has retained the power to fight, so the recovery process takes a very fast time with the help of a huge amount of energy. When Jia Yan came back, he found that Leta had been waiting eagerly outside his palace. In other words, he didn't even have to wait outside the palace deliberately. The entire Edisha planet was so big. He was squatting on the other side of the planet. I'm afraid that for strong men like them, he was waiting outside the palace. Damn it, I found that after seeing such a big palace, I don't like Edis's star anywhere. What should I do? Jia Yan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It's not that he dislikes the Edisha star. After all, even if the palace can be moved normally, it will never be as convenient as the Edisha star. After all, the size and weight are there. But he was afraid of comparing everything. After Jia Yan saw the palace, Edisha, who he originally thought was good, naturally fell into the inferior category. Rita, are you ready? Jia Yan stepped out of the palace in one step and looked at Leda, who had adjusted his aura to full condition. Yes, Lord Jia Yan, I'm ready. Very good, let me try to see how much subspace affinity you have. The first step for Jia Yan is to see how much affinity Leda has for the subspace. Even if there is no subspace talent, there is still an affinity for the subspace. At least Leda is in the subspace. He has been in and out of so many places without any major problems, which shows that he may have an affinity for the subspace. Buzz. Jia Yan put a foot on Leda's shoulder. Although Leda is also a strong man who is not used to being intimately touched by others, since it is Jia Yan, he will not resist, but he is just a little uncomfortable. Next, he saw that his surroundings were completely distorted. The subspace distortion that was originally isolated by Edisha appeared inside the planet, and what was extremely strange was that it only appeared on Leda's shoulders. Watching this scene, Leda was extremely surprised. You must know that this ability to control the subspace can only be achieved by a being who has a superb understanding of the subspace. Jia Yan's innate ability in subspace, even Leda still doesn't know where he has reached. He only knows that Jia Yan can definitely enter the 10-dimensional subspace physically, but this physical body entering the 10-dimensional subspace is like when he sees a strong person whose body has entered the 9th dimension. Even though they all know how strong they are, they can't tell how big the difference is. It's like an ant. It knows that both humans and elephants can crush it with one kick, but it doesn't know the strength and weakness of the relationship between humans and elephants. But now, Jia Yan's move of directly distorting the subspace from the outside world and leading it into the planet allowed Leda to get a glimpse of the tip of the iceberg and let him understand the extent of Jia Yan's subspace attainments. Oh, the surface of your body already has some traces of the subspace because you have been in and out of the subspace recently, but these are insignificant things. I want to see the deeper inside. Jia Yan calmly let the distortion of space swim on the surface of Leda's body, and then gradually penetrated deep into his body. Ahem, it's not the one that goes deep into the body, don't think wrongly. Well, it hurts a little. Be patient, it will get better in a while. Jia Yan and Leda were talking. Leighton nodded obediently, then gritted his teeth and endured it. Not long after, I heard a buzz sound. The distortion disappeared instantly. Jia Yan nodded and looked at Leda, who was panting and seemed to have been ravaged, with some surprise. Yes, you still have some subdimensional potential, but whether you can guide it out depends on your fate. Of course, with me here, it should be possible. Huh? Do I have subdimensional potential? Please help Mr. Jia Yan, thank you very much. After listening to this, Leda felt as if chicken blood was flowing all over her body. Subspace talent. The first time he heard about this talent was in his hometown. Although he had never seen it in person, he knew from the literature records and a large number of word-of-mouth transmissions that it was difficult to deal with strong people with this talent. But at that time, he just listened to it as a legend, and in the days that followed, he also saw a few low-level subspace talented people, those who had the ability to enter a subspace, and he could kill them with one blow. To him, there was nothing surprising at all, so he didn't have much envy of the subspace. But the appearance of Jia Yan completely changed his view of the subspace. At that time, when he was still in his hometown, he was a little surprised when he heard that a genius with subspace talent had joined the Zerg Queen's force. He didn't originally think that subspace talent was that powerful. But later, he saw with his own eyes that Jia Yan appeared from a very deep subspace, and it was so silent, he was so shocked that he almost broke out in a cold sweat. You must know that such a silent movement method, if used in assassination, would make him feel horrified. But what happened when he came to the central star field of the Milky Way made him truly understand the meaning of subspace talent. Subspace talent, it turns out, is not only a dispensable talent, but even in the central star field of the Milky Way where strong people are outnumbered, it is an extremely terrifying first-class talent. Strong people who have cultivated subspace talent, are often unwilling to deal with strong ones of the same level, and this advantage will be maintained until the domain lord level, and even the domain lords of this level will not dare to disrespect a strong person with subspace talent. Jia Yan's return and appearance in front of him made him completely admiring this talent. Domain owner? Indiscriminate killing. Big power? Threats. The forces that were being killed and threatened actually dared not speak out one or two. What kind of talent and coolness is this? And today, he actually had a chance to tap into the subspace talent? There was already a vague foreshadowing, but when the possibility finally came to light, Leda got excited and entered a state of excitement. Don't worry, I said I would help you, and I will definitely succeed. Jia Yan was already confident, so his face showed a little more confidence. Not long after, Jia Yan continued to use his subspace ability in this twisted land, and from time to time, Leda entered the subspace to be tortured, and then fell back to the Edisha planet amid screams. Leda swore that he really didn't know that his journey to subspace was in such a domineering way. If he knew, he would probably have to consider whether he was willing to go through it. Every time life was worse than death, Jia Yan managed it very well. Every time when he was almost losing his mind, he let him return to the subspace and re-evaluated and considered his physical condition, and after the physical change in the subspace, he was released to the outside of the subspace again. Alright. This method is really simple and crude, but in fact, you can understand the truth. Even if a person is thrown into the sea and drowns half to death every day, he can learn to swim in just a few days. Similar methods have been researched by strong people a long time ago. But there are some key points in this. The most important one is that the being who is thrown into the subspace to be tortured must have considerable perseverance. Then, the strong person who helps him to be tortured needs to have extreme perseverance. Strong subspace capabilities. It's easier to talk about perseverance. Many strong people have perseverance. But it is difficult to find a terrifying subspace strongman, not to mention that not everyone is in the mood to help an unknown existence. Besides, this process still requires a lot of resource support. If resources are not used, Leda's body may collapse, or the effect may not be as good as imagined. There are various restrictions and various checkpoints there. Taken together, Jia Yan is the only one who can help Leda. Others can't learn it even if they want to. In fact, among so many requirements, there was one that they were not satisfied with, and that was Leda's own willpower. To be honest, Leda is not the kind of strong person who can endure hardships, so after the first painful experience, he begged Jia Yan to stop doing it, but Jia Yan told him that he had started from the beginning and could not give up halfway. And prevaricate. Ever since, the scene of a reluctant strong man with snot and tears streaming down his face in the subspace, screaming and enjoying the washing of the subspace, kept happening inside the subspace. After using it for about half a month. Sir, I find that my body has reached its limit. If I continue, I will die. Sir, that's it? I'm satisfied. Leighton knelt in front of Jia Yan again, barely kowtowing. Oh, it seems that this time I have really reached my limit. Alas, I didn't expect that you can only bear it to this extent. I'm a little disappointed. With your own strength, I'm afraid you won't even be able to enter the octave. It's really a waste of expressions and so many resources. Text download address. Phone reading. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2445. Jia Yan looked at Lada's body with regret, feeling like he still wanted to continue. No need, Master Jia Yan. I am quite satisfied with being able to move freely in the seventh dimension in this life. And as my strength improves in the future, I may be able to enter deeper dimensions. Please let me go, I really don't want to continue. Leda almost cried. Well, it just so happens that Aditya has almost finished the palace. We will set off right away. I have other places I want to go next. It just so happens that you can enter and exit the subspace. I will teach you some subspace skills. In the future, there are more tasks for you to do. Okay, sir, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Leda is very good. He understands that what he gets is what he needs to pay. This principle is the same everywhere. It's just that Jia Yan is definitely much better than other strong men, and Leda will not be turned into a slave-like tool. Both sides understand this. Master, all the test machines are working properly. As long as the Odysseus star is dragging it in front and you add a little more strength, this big guy will be pushed into 10-dimensional space. Can you promise there won't be any problems? Odysseus promises it. Okay, let's set off. The so-called mid-level guy who is close to the domain lord will probably not be able to cause trouble for the Zerg Queen and the others. It's a good time to set off now. Jia Yan nodded calmly. At this time, 2 days have passed since Leda was prompted by him to have some subdimensional abilities. During these 2 days, Jia Yan did nothing else but urged Odysseus back and forth to complete the work quickly. Fortunately, things were almost done. When Jia Yan was bored and wanted to go out for some air, good news came from Odysseus. Buzz. Not long after, the Odysseus star was in front, and the huge palace was behind. It was pulled by the planet in front and flew deeper into the subspace. This terrifying kinetic energy even caused some commotion in the outside world, but Jia Yan and the others chose to park in a relatively inaccessible starry sky. Even if there is a slight fluctuation, as long as there is not a powerful person above the star level outside, no one can discover the cause of this movement. No one in the outside world knows about the huge palace and planet that he left. Not to mention that no one knows that the subspace powerhouse who was originally thought to have left a few months ago has just left today. The 10-dimensional space, because it was so distorted, seemed to have a strange calmness. It felt like it was speeding along the way, as if it was not moving. After all, the surroundings were all dark and too quiet. Leda flies over the planet Odysseus. He looked at the subspace distortion in the outside world, and then realized the subspace energy inside. For him, who had just mastered many subspace skills, this 10-dimensional experience of subspace was like opening up a new world. In such a terrifying 10-dimensional space, is Master Jia Yan actually able to physically travel here? My God, what a terrifying talent this must be. Leda was speechless. The closer you get to Jia Yan, the more you understand his talents and abilities. He was thinking that other subspace domain masters would look envious if they knew about Jia Yan's subspace talent. Because Jia Yan's subspace talent must be much stronger than the average strong person with the same talent. As a subspace ability user who had just been forced out by Jia Yan using his unique methods and resources, he was very satisfied to be able to move around the periphery of the 7th subspace. The 7th degree shows that in the same level of battle, he can enter the subspace to escape. As long as he quickly enters the 7th level of the subspace, he can avoid or deflect the enemy's full attack. This is enough to increase his combat effectiveness. Soaring straight up. And Jia Yan even said that when his combat effectiveness stabilizes, he will teach him the skills of fighting in subspace in the future. This is absolutely great news for Leda. He was just observing the subspace of the outside world. Looking back, after following Jia Yan, he had greatly improved both in strength and status. Of course, the more important thing is that he no longer has to do what he did in the Zerg Queen's force. Thinking about when we will have to fight the enemy and risk our lives. After all, Jia Yan's strength is a senior domain master, much stronger than the Zerg Queen. What's more, his so-called power has no population at all. As long as he and Leda's training resources are guaranteed, it will be enough. He can almost stay aloof from the world. Oh, that's not right. In a short period of time, he witnessed Jia Yan's robbery. But, he collected compensation from many domain lord level forces, but this does not mean that following Jia Yan will require fighting, because most opponents will stop and be stunned after knowing Jia Yan's strength and talent. Following Mr. Jia Yan is probably the best and most correct decision I have made in all these years. I must not lose this opportunity in the future. Leda thought that he should ensure his position next to Jia Yan. Fortunately, he didn't have to worry so much now, because there was no one around Jia Yan except him. But soon, Leda discovered that he was wrong. And it's so wrong. Jia Yan has no one available except himself. Instead, he has a large reserve of talents somewhere. That place was another place that Jia Yan planned to visit after he defeated the Zerg Queen's forces, the Peaceful Star Territory. The Peaceful Star Territory is still the same. It is quite comfortable everywhere. Countless people live the best life here. They don't have to worry about strong people fighting or that strong people will come when they walk on the road. Grab your stuff. What is emphasized here is that everyone is equal. Even a venerable level being will be severely punished if he commits a crime. What? You ask about semi-stellar and stellar levels. Sorry, that has already risen to another level. Generally speaking, the existences of these two levels are high-level people. They will be superiors wherever they go, and they will not commit any crimes. Even if they commit crimes, they will never be too high level. Severe punishment. As for the Galaxy class, this is even more embarrassing. They are the makers of the rules. Let alone doing bad things, even changing the laws of the star field is not a big deal. Domain owner? What's even more embarrassing is that there is no territory lord in the Peace Star territory. However, that was a thing of the past. In today's Peace Star territory, there is a territory lord that is haunting. Yes, he is Jia Yan, who is returning to his hometown. Jia Yan is no ordinary territory lord, he is a senior territory lord. In fact, because they were traveling from the 10-dimensional space, the Zerg Queen's force originally had to travel for more than a month, but it only took Jia Yan and the others about 3 or 4 days to arrive, which was so close. On the other hand, preparations such as accelerating and braking took about a week, which added up to nearly half a month. Traveling in 10 dimensions over a short distance was actually not that convenient. I can't go out with you in person this time. After all, if my real body goes out, it will definitely cause an uproar. Although I am not afraid of the existence of the domain lords around me, I don't want to destroy the peace of the star domain. You just follow my clone. Jia Yan said this to Leda in the subspace. There's nothing Leda can't do. After a while, Jia Yan's clone, a tortoise-like creature, slowly flew out of the subspace with Leda behind him. This time Edisha dragged the huge palace and stopped at the 6th dimension. It should have stopped at the 5th dimension so that Leda could reluctantly enter and exit. However, because this time he had obtained the subspace ability, so this time let's try stopping at 6 degrees to see if Leda can get in and out. The results are also gratifying. Although Leda has not been in and out of the subspace much recently, this is the first time he can freely enter and exit the 6 degrees, and there are not many problems. Very good, I will teach you some combat skills and utilization methods in subspace on the way. Jia Yan happened to have never communicated with others about things in the subspace. With Leda, a subdimensional subordinate who was completely from his own, he could have a good exchange. Of course, it was said to be communication, but in fact it was entirely him teaching. It's just that Leda asked some very basic questions, but it allowed Jia Yan to spread his thinking. Certain questions that he was accustomed to and considered common sense always made Jia Yan think deeply and fall into realization and silence. Because the brainwave power of the clone is only close to the galaxy level, so this time Jia Yan did not think about going out to fight or anything, although in the peaceful star territory, I am afraid there are not many beings who can defeat his clone. But Jia Yan's return this time was not to fight. So it was quite slow along the way. Coming out of the sixth dimension, Jia Yan first took Leda to get familiar with the next dimension, and then walked back and forth. After Leda was almost familiar with the skills of moving in low-level space, he took Leda out of the subspace again. All I saw in the outside world was a large amount of peace. I didn't expect that there is such a peaceful place in the central star field of the Milky Way. Leda was surprised. You know, his general understanding of the central star field of the Milky Way is that it is chaos. Even though there are indeed many strong people here, in fact it is also synonymous with chaos. Even if they live under a certain big force, civilians will generally be affected by it. The oppression of excessive taxes and miscellaneous taxes. But it is different in this peaceful star field. Even if you just feel it for the first time when you arrive here, it is completely different from the tranquility and peace of the outside world. The fire of war cannot burn here at all. Tourist ships in the starry sky not only carry powerful people with some strength, but even beings with average strength are also riding with the powerful people on board. Even an Earth-level being can be with a respected person. The powerful warriors chatted. Even if the level of strong people still exists, even if the stronger the strong people are, the more privileges they will still have, but what is done here is better than anywhere else. Let's ask Leda's own hometown, and the places under his own jurisdiction, he will definitely not be able to do it. To this extent. It's like a paradise. Actually, there are rules here, and there are also rules and regulations where the strong are rampant. Generally speaking, it is much better than the outside world, so I want you to come and take a look. If we build some places of power ourselves in the future, we can also find something to learn from. Jia Yan spoke frankly, saying the above words to Leda beside him, and directly said that he was planning to create a similar place of power in the future. When Leda heard these words, his whole mood suddenly brightened. You know, saying such words shows that Jia Yan has already had the idea of establishing power. More importantly, he is willing to say the above words to Leda, which shows that he values Leda very much and will rely on Leda in the future. Strength building power. This does not mean treating yourself as an outsider. Leda was so excited that she wanted to shout. But he resisted the urge. He just calmly recorded the scenery that Jia Yan saw along the way, as well as the better advantages. If there is any need in the future, he can directly refer to it. Jia Yan originally planned to let Leda take note of it and become his right-hand man in the future. After all, a helper who is a beginner in the galaxy and has subdimensional abilities is considered qualified, and maybe Leda will help him in the future. Will he be successfully promoted to the middle level of galaxy? That would be quite appropriate. It would not be shameful for a senior territory lord to have an intermediate galaxy subordinate. Okay, what I want to show you is not just these things. You know, when I was outside the power of the Zerg Queen, I stayed here for a while, but you may not know that I used to be in this area. A force has been established in the Peace Star territory, and its name is the Yin-Yang section. I really wanted the sect to develop well at the beginning, but I don't know what's going on now. Let's go and take a look. Jia Yan led Leda to fly forward. The creatures along the way were fine when they saw Jia Yan's clone, but after seeing Leda's body, their expressions changed drastically. You must know that in this peaceful starry sky, let alone the domain lord. Even the galaxy level is rare. But Leta's obvious physique of a galaxy-level creature makes him stand out from the crowd. The more important point is that if Leta is a familiar galaxy-class existence, then that's it, but his appearance is completely different from the galaxy-class existence that everyone is familiar with in this starry sky. This directly made countless ordinary people feel scared. Although this is a peaceful star field, the creatures here can still receive the meaning of being strong and the chaotic information from the outside world. It would be okay if other galaxy-class people from far-away places in the Peace Star territory came, but if the bad galaxy-class people from the outside world came and were murderous, the problem would be too big. Huh? There is a report coming, saying that a very strange territory lord has come to our starry sky, and after comparing the entire database, he is not registered? In other words, he is probably a person from the outside world. A galaxy level from the outside world. Be careful. The combat capabilities of the galaxy levels from the outside are extremely terrifying. Let's go over to the 5 galaxy levels and take a look. But it's too difficult to gather 5 galaxy levels at once. It takes time. Alas, there is peace in our star field. It's a good thing, but none of them have the same fighting ability. Text download address. Phone reading. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 2446. It would be great if there was a middle-level star from the galaxy here. Even if his combat power is not good, at least he doesn't have to be afraid of a junior star from the galaxy. Don't say so much. Anyway, someone needs to ask about the situation first. Send a stellar police officer there. If he dies, we will remember him. That's it. This is what the strong men in the Peace Star territory are like. Not to mention the fierce and strong men from the outside world, even in the internal disputes between various forces, they almost don't know how to use fighting methods, so they don't dare to see any strong men at all. When someone is suspected of being a strong person from outside, he dares to come forward and ask in person. The existences in the entire star territory are said to be the maintainers of security in the Peace Star territory, but in fact they are more of just existences that show off their strength in front of the ordinary weaklings in this star territory. Facing the real outside gangsters, they are of no use at all. Although there is peace, the strong ones are not strong enough, and in the end they cannot even improve their strength. This is the biggest problem in the development of the Peace Star territory to this day. So everything has pros and cons. Jia Yan has long known the characteristics of this star field, so even if he is so arrogant with Leta, he knows that there will not be too much obstruction. Leta was puzzled for a long time. He fully knew that when he and Jia Yan arrived, they did not say hello to the star field in advance. If it were changed to another star field or force, such as the force where the orangutan was from before, others would have entered deep into his home. If you get married, you will definitely be furious. Even if you don't come to kill, you will rush to ask as soon as possible. But this peaceful star territory is good, not to mention coming to kill. Several days have passed, Jia Yan and Leta have been playing and communicating while moving forward, but there has been no movement at all. Could it be that in this peaceful star field, there is no intention to guard against others? However, Leta's doubts were quickly verified, but the person who verified it left him speechless for a while. It turned out that the being who came to inquire was actually a star-level powerhouse. Dare I ask this lord his name? Also, I don't know why he came to us. He was as nervous as a star. He was dressed neatly as a police officer in this star field. He looked more powerful than the police officers in the outer starry sky, but when he spoke, it was not the same thing at all. He was brave. Small batch. Leta originally wanted to see how Jia Yan would handle it, but Jia Yan indicated with his eyes that he could just come forward. Friend, we are from the outside world, but don't worry, we will not pose any threat to you, We are just here to have fun. Leta's relatively gentle voice made the police officer, a star-level creature, let out a long sigh of relief. He was afraid that the galaxy-level powerhouse in front of him would attack him directly. Of course, if you are just an elementary creature from the galaxy, there is still a way to deal with it in the Peace Star territory. After all, you are not an intermediate star or a peak star powerhouse. At that level of galaxy level, the Peace Star territory will be really difficult to deal with. Unless it is an extremely terrifying threat or crime, the strong man is usually asked to get some benefits and order him to leave. As for the Domain Master level, needless to say, if the Domain Lord level comes, the Starry Sky and even the backers behind this peaceful Starry Sky will default to the coming Domain Lord strong ones to earn some resources and leave. In fact, in the development of the Peace Star territory, what kind of crisis has it not encountered? Even the Territory Lord appeared before. At that time, the Territory Lord took advantage of it. Even if the Territory Lord from the outside would protect this place, he did not regard it as his own territory. Therefore, the Peace Star territory can generally only be bleeding profusely. And powerful people such as Territory Lords coming from the outside will soon choose to give up occupying this area after fully understanding this area, because in essence, the Peace Star territory does not actually have too much production. They can develop it. It is completely their unique peaceful environment. If it is occupied and the peaceful environment is lost, the advantages here will be gone and it will become a barren land again. Of course, what's more important is that this place is located on the edge of the galaxy's central star territory. Even this edge is considered a barren place. Even if the economy of the Peace Star territory is okay, how can it compare to places deeper in the galaxy's central star territory? With Territory Lord level strength, there are already ways to occupy a more privileged place. After carefully understanding the production and scale of this place, and then comprehensively considering the backing Territory Lord behind the Peace Star territory, the coming Territory Lord will choose to withdraw. Of course, when you withdraw, you will take away huge benefits. All in all, although the Peace Star territory is relatively good, it has been able to remain peaceful because of its unique balanced status. The strong men coming from the outside world are usually a headache in the Peace Star territory. For example, after hearing Leta's reply, the expression of the stellar powerhouse suddenly changed. As a police officer, he knows how difficult it is to get along with the creatures in the outside world. When dealing with similar incidents, many of their partners died on the front line, and they were the type who could not get justice. Well, sir, you are a strong person from the outside world, so you need to register with us. If you don't register, it will be more troublesome for us to handle your affairs. I wonder if you are free and come to our police station. Registration is in progress at the facility. Well, we are willing to cooperate with your affairs. After Leta thought about it, he felt that he still needed to cooperate with local affairs. There was no need to ask Jia Yan about this. After all, Jia Yan had stayed here for a period of time and did not mess up the place. He also created a force. It shows that he is not hostile to this place. Jia Yan was on one side and nodded secretly. He has always felt that Leta's behavior is a bit too timid, and there were some signs before that everything needs to be approved by him. If it really becomes that kind of relationship in the future, Jia Yan will have a headache, because he wants to. Your subordinates are not the type who have to ask themselves everything, but they must have a certain degree of self-assertion. At that moment, Leta made his own judgment. Let's not say whether the judgment was good or bad. He only said that he dared to make such a judgment and act in front of himself, which showed that his courage had become bigger and could be used in the future. After all, Leta himself is a star. He is just a little timid, but it is not that he really has no ability to handle affairs. If you really want to talk about it, Jia Yan may not be as capable as him in handling affairs. The two people's indifferent attitude did not reveal the slightest hostility, nor even the slightest discomfort, which made the stellar powerhouse in front of them heave a long sigh of relief. At the same time, he was also doubting, were these still two strong men from the outer star field? It seemed to be different from the outsiders he had heard about. Aren't some of the outsiders very suspicious, and even if they agreed, they would be more wary? This is why he doesn't understand. If it were Leda who came here alone, let alone being so calm, he might not even let people from the Peace Star territory get close to him. But it was different now. He was accompanied by Jia Yan, a senior territory lord. Even if it was just a clone, he had seen Jia Yan almost kill a junior territory lord, the Black Sheep, with his clone. How could he not be safe? Feel. It is said that there is no domain master in the Peace Star territory. In other words, even if there is a clone following him, Jia Yan's clone is invincible, not to mention that his true body is in the subspace deep in the Peace Star territory. Later, I seriously doubt that even if things really get serious, Jia Yan can defeat many ordinary domain lords around him by himself. The closer you get to the edge of the Milky Way's central star field, the more senior domain master Jia Yan has a stronger sense of presence and the more invincible he becomes. Even in the depths of the central star field of the Milky Way, and even in the black hole area, Jia Yan can already control it to a small extent. Here, to say invincible is not an exaggeration, right? So Rita is a very good person. A bloody battle with the sect police station. This is a force that is completely inconsistent with its name. They control many mineral industries in the Peace Star territory. Although they are called the Blood War sect, they take maintaining peace in the entire Peace Star territory as their own responsibility. Many strong men come out just to join the police force. Team. Of course, when the Blood War sect was first founded in the past, something related to the Blood War must have happened, otherwise they would not be embarrassed to call it such a name, but that is all in the past tense. At least now, they have nothing to do with the name. Different. Today, the Blood War sect, contrary to the normal state of peace, welcomed a guest who made the entire sect extremely nervous. A primary being from the galaxy coming from the outside world. If they were just the first-level powerhouses of the galaxy, they would not have much fear, because the Blood War sect itself had several powerhouses above the galaxy level, and there was even one mid-level powerhouse in the galaxy. But that strong man would not be dispatched easily, and his combat effectiveness was average among the middle-level strongmen in the galaxy in the Peace Star territory. Many experiences in the past proved that a middle-level warrior in the galaxy in the Peace Star territory like him could still. It is really not necessarily possible to defeat a galaxy beginner who comes from the outside world. Therefore, the entire Blood War sect was extremely nervous and even urgently asked for help from the outside world, sending several good strong men to suppress the formation. A powerful foreigner can make people go to war in the Peace Star territory. Your Excellency, please take a seat. Oh, this should be your junior. Will you take this junior out to practice? Arriving at the largest mountain gate hall of the Blood War sect, several galaxy-level members from the Blood War sect went out to greet Leda in person. Then, while sitting down, they looked at the old turtle with a white beard next to Leda strangely. It seems that he is not a junior, but his strength should be that of a stellar powerhouse, so it is probably correct to say that he is a junior. Leda was startled and quickly stood up and waved his hand. No, this is my friend. We are traveling together. As for the purpose, I don't need to explain it to you, right? Of course not. Are we friends after all? Haha, hello, friend. I just said something wrong. Please don't mind. Several strong men on the other side looked at each other, and they were a little surprised. After all, Leda's attitude made it clear at a glance that this stellar powerhouse was definitely not as simple as his junior. Looking at his respectful attitude, it was obvious that, this stellar level must be the descendant of someone who is more powerful than this stellar primary powerhouse. That is, from a big family. This is even more difficult to handle. After all, it would be easier to deal with an ordinary Galaxy Junior who only relied on his own combat power, but a descendant of a family would be here. If he doesn't serve well, he might let his own family do it. To put pressure on a family that needs a junior galaxy to accompany their heirs, one can imagine the strength behind it. There may be a strong man at the top of the intermediate galaxy in charge. As for the descendants of the powerful domain lord, it is almost impossible. If it is the heir of a strong domain lord, either the star level is not welcomed at home, or the domain lord no longer has the strength of the domain lord level, otherwise he will not let his heirs only use a junior guard of the galaxy travels. Anyway, looking at it this way, creatures with some experience can distinguish a lot. But identifying it doesn't mean they have countermeasures. And this analysis is also wrong. Because a turtle-like creature is not a descendant of any family at all. If you really want to say it, he is the ancestor of his own family, and he is an ancestor who is almost invincible. At least in this peaceful star field, he is Zonghung unrivaled. Jia Yan didn't say anything. In short, he just wanted to see how Leta's handling and communication skills were, and he didn't need to speak at this time. The other party's intention was actually very simple, which was to tell Leighton not to do anything outrageous in this starry sky. It was very similar to the treatment Jia Yan received after his true identity was discovered when he was recovering in this starry sky. The Blood War sect even showed some thoughts of recruiting, but Leta directly rejected it, and the Blood War sect didn't bother too much. After all, this peaceful star field is really not suitable for the development of strong people. This is evident from the fact that a good blood fighting sect has turned into a police sect. Not long after, Leta and Jia Yan walked out of the bloody battle sect surrounded by a group of strong men. The feeling of the sect is really something I haven't seen for a long time. Jia Yan remembered the sect he had joined in the Peace Star territory. But that sect's affairs were not the main reason why he came to the Peace Star territory this time. The reason why he came here was to see how his Yin-Yang sect was developing. The Peace Star territory is still so peaceful. I think as long as the Yin-Yang sect doesn't do anything extraordinary, it won't be wiped out, right? When Jia Yan was in the Peace Star territory, he did a lot of things. If the forces in the Peace Star territory wanted to deal with the Yin-Yang sect, they must have taken action. It's just that it's only been a few years. Jia Yan feels that the reputation he left behind should still be there. Judging from the cautious way every force in the Peace Star territory handles things, they must have not taken action against his Yin-Yang section, right? The forces that had criticized the Yin-Yang sect in the past were intimidated by him before he finally left. They knew that he was a strong man who had reached the peak of the middle level of the galaxy, so they should not dare to continue to attack. Later, after getting the pass, let's set off and go to the place I really want to go, which is the power I built in this starry sky. Okay, sir. Leighton nodded. He already knew why Jia Yan came to this starry sky. Text download address. Phone reading.